At 11:17 on a wet Thursday morning, Marlene Keating sat in her Buick with everything she currently needed piled on the back seat and called her youngest son last. Elaine had said her house was not in a good season for company. Todd had offered to send Marlene a link to an extended stay hotel near the interstate. Both had sounded sorry. Neither had asked why their 69-year-old mother was calling from a parking lot. Ben answered over the whine of a power sander. "Mom? Hang on." The machine stopped. Something wooden clattered to the floor, followed by a word Frank would have objected to at the dinner table. "Okay, what happened?" The motel coverage ran out. "I need somewhere to stay until the house is finished." A pause. Marlene tightened her grip on the phone. "I'm not asking forever. 4 weeks, maybe 5. I can pay toward groceries. Where are you sleeping tonight?" "I just told you. I'm looking for a room." "No, you told me where you're not sleeping. Where are you right now?" She looked through the windshield at her own darkened house across the street, its front windows blank behind sheets of cloudy plastic. "In the car," she said. Ben did not answer for several seconds. Marlene almost laughed. 3 children, 3 homes, 3 different kinds of silence. Somehow, only the child everyone called unreliable had thought to ask where she would put her body when night came. The Buick's back seat held 1 suitcase, a tote bag of toiletries, Frank's blue thermos, and a cardboard box labeled "Important" in Elaine's handwriting. The box contained Marlene's insurance papers, 2 phone chargers that fit nothing she owned, a restaurant menu, and Frank's death certificate tucked inside a plastic grocery bag. Elaine had organized it during the week after the funeral, when organization was the only emotion she trusted. Marlene had packed lightly when she left the house 26 days earlier. The restoration company had told her the drying equipment would run for 72 hours. She had believed that 72 hours meant 3 days, which was apparently adorable. First came the industrial fans, then the moisture readings, then a disagreement over whether the dining room ceiling could be saved. Then a second adjuster who took photographs of the same buckled floorboards the first adjuster had photographed. A contractor named Dave had said, "Best case scenario," so many times that Marlene had begun to hear it as a threat. Her insurer had paid for the Sleep Right motel near Route 20. It was not terrible. The sheets were clean, the shower was hot, and the woman at the front desk kept peppermints in a bowl shaped like a swan. But that morning, the woman had slid Marlene's receipt across the counter and said, with genuine regret, "I wish I could do something." Marlene had said, "So do I." She could have paid for another week herself. That was what Todd meant when he reminded her she had savings. She had enough money not to be stranded, which was different from having enough money to be careless. The lowest weekly rate she found would swallow nearly half a month's income, and no one could tell her whether she needed a room for 4 weeks or 14. Besides, there came a point when a woman wanted to know whether she had raised children or merely produced emergency contacts. Across the street, yellow tape crossed her front steps. Through the gap in the curtains, she could see a corner of the dining room, stripped to the studs. She had spent the morning pretending she was there to meet Dave, though Dave had texted at 9 that he wouldn't make it. She had nowhere else she needed to be. "Why didn't you call me yesterday?" Ben asked. "I was working through my options." "You mean Elaine and Todd? That isn't fair. Did they say yes?" Marlene watched rain slide down the windshield in crooked paths. "They have complicated households. Elaine has 4 bedrooms. She and Mark are under pressure." "From what, decorative pillows?" Despite herself, Marlene smiled. Elaine's house did contain an astonishing number of pillows. Some were so stiff and square, they seemed less intended for comfort than for enforcing standards. The last time Marlene stayed overnight, she had removed 7 from the guest bed and built a respectable retaining wall against the dresser. "Don't be ugly," she said. "I'm not being ugly. I'm being geographically aware. Todd has 3 bedrooms and a finished basement. The basement stairs are steep. So are mine, I know." Another pause, smaller this time. Ben lived 2 hours south in an apartment above the workshop he rented from a retired cabinet maker. Marlene had visited once, just after he moved in. The stairs ran outside the brick building and turned sharply at a landing barely wide enough for a grocery bag. His living room contained a sofa with 1 depressed cushion, 2 unmatched lamps, and a coffee table he claimed was worth $800 despite appearing to have survived a barn fire. His bedroom had no closet door. His kitchen had no drawer that opened without negotiation. It was not where she had imagined herself at 69. "I can come get you," he said. You are working. I can stop. No, you cannot. That is exactly why your jobs take twice as long as you quote. Good to know crisis hasn't softened you. This isn't a crisis. You're sitting in a car with nowhere to sleep. I have a credit card. That's not the same thing. Marlene disliked how quickly that landed. She reached for Frank's thermos, though it was empty. She had brought it from the house because it had been beside the coffee maker the morning the pipe burst. There was nothing special about it. The logo of an Ohio machine parts company had faded to 3 white scratches, and the lid leaked if tipped sideways. Frank had carried it to work for 23 years. Now Marlene transported it between motel rooms, as if it required supervision. The pipe had burst on a Sunday night while she was at Elaine's house, glazing tiny onions and folding cloth napkins for a dinner involving 6 people from Mark's firm. Elaine had said she only needed an extra pair of hands. By the time Marlene realized she had prepared the entire meal, Elaine was upstairs changing clothes. Rain had turned to sleet during dinner. Marlene had stayed because Elaine disliked her driving after dark, though the guest room mattress made Marlene's hip ache. At 6 the next morning, her neighbor Noreen called. "I don't want to scare you," Noreen had begun, which accomplished the opposite. Water was running beneath Marlene's back door. A frozen connection in the upstairs bathroom had failed. The restoration men later explained pressure and temperature and aging copper, but the explanation did nothing to improve the sight of Frank's dining room ceiling, lying across the table in wet gray pieces. Marlene had stood in the doorway wearing Elaine's borrowed rain boots while water dripped onto the oak floor. "Oh, honey," Noreen said behind her. Marlene had not cried when the paramedics took Frank out through that same door. She had not cried at the funeral home, where Todd kept asking what kind of wood Frank would have preferred for the casket. But when she saw the wallpaper peeling in a long, limp strip beside the china cabinet, she made a sound so raw that Noreen took her by both shoulders. Frank had hung that wallpaper in 1998. The pattern was tiny blue leaves, and he had complained for 15 years that none of the branches matched at the seams. Marlene had told him nobody but him could see it. Now she could see every seam. Elaine arrived 40 minutes later with coffee, legal pads, and Mark. Todd came after lunch carrying a flashlight and asking whether anyone had checked the garage. Ben called twice. Marlene sent both calls to voicemail because the restoration foreman was talking, and because Ben always seemed to telephone at the least manageable moment. By the 3rd day, Elaine had created the important box. Todd had moved Frank's power tools onto high shelves and put strips of masking tape across the drawers. "This stuff shouldn't get tossed by accident," he said. "No one is tossing anything. You know how crews are. What does that mean? It means they're crews." Todd could make suspicion sound like common sense. He had inherited that from Frank, along with the broad shoulders and the habit of rubbing his thumb along his lower lip while thinking. Watching him in Frank's garage made Marlene feel comforted and irritated in equal measure. Todd claimed he was protecting the tools for the family. He did not mention that half the garage already held his own possessions. A table saw he had not used since moving to a subdivision with strict noise rules, 4 plastic tubs of college notebooks, golf clubs, and a dining set his wife had decided was too rustic. Elaine's china had occupied Marlene's cabinet for 9 years. Ben's records were still in the smallest upstairs bedroom, but at least Ben occasionally offered to take them. Marlene always told him they weren't hurting anyone. For nearly 4 weeks, her children behaved as though the sleep right were an exotic vacation she had won. Elaine called every morning and asked whether Marlene had remembered to request a room away from the ice machine. Todd brought her a microwave dinner and spent 30 minutes adjusting the television picture. Ben left messages that ranged from "call me when you get this" to "are you mad at me?" Marlene answered with cheerful texts because cheerfulness took less time. The insurance letter arrived on Tuesday. Temporary lodging benefit exhausted, it said, as if the benefit had become tired and gone home. That night, Marlene called Elaine. She had meant to say, "My motel coverage ends Thursday. May I stay in your guest room until the repairs are done?" Instead, she said, "How are things with you and Mark?" Elaine sighed. "Honestly, not good." Marlene waited. There was no affair, illness, separation, or catastrophe. Mark's firm was restructuring. He had become short-tempered. Elaine had begun sleeping in the guest room some nights, although she also said she and Mark were trying to protect their closeness. "I don't think having another person in the house would help," Elaine said carefully. "Another person." Marlene looked at the frame print bolted to the motel wall. A sailboat floated on water the color of canned peas. "Of course not," she said. Todd's refusal was less elegant. His wife, Paige, conducted client meetings from home. The basement stairs were unsafe. Their plumbing made a knocking sound. He could help Marlene compare hotel prices. "Just until the contractor finishes," Marlene said. "You know how those guys are, Mom. 4 weeks becomes 4 months. I'm aware. And you've got money. Dad made sure of that." Marlene did not tell him that Frank had also made sure Todd never paid a storage unit. Now Ben was breathing into her phone, waiting. "I don't need you to rescue me," she said. "Great. I'm not qualified. That is not what I meant. I know. Look, I can't promise the stairs won't kill us both. The apartment is a mess, and the bathroom faucet screams when you turn it left. But there's a bed. One bed. You take it. And where will you sleep? The couch. That couch has a crater. It remembers me." She laughed once, then pressed her lips together. Crying in a parked car was the sort of thing that invited a passing stranger to tap on the window. "I can find something here," she said. "Probably, but you don't have to find it today." The workshop noise returned faintly behind him. A radio, footsteps, someone calling Ben's name. "I'm coming up," he said. 2 hours, maybe 2.5 in this weather. Stay where you are." Ben. "What?" "You have a delivery due Friday." "It'll still be due Friday." "That is not reassuring." "Mom, please." His voice had changed, not louder. Less protected. Marlene looked at the dark house, at the plastic over the windows, at the yellow tape lifting and settling in the wind. Upstairs, behind one of those windows, 3 bedrooms waited beneath dust sheets. Elaine's old brass bed, Todd's bookcase, Ben's records. Rooms she vacuumed, heated, and kept ready because family might come. "All right," she said. After they hung up, she sat without moving. At noon, she ate half a packet of peanut butter crackers from the glove compartment. At 12:30, she walked across the street and checked the tape on the back door. At 1, she returned Noreen's call and lied that everything was handled. Ben's truck turned onto the street at 1:46, primer gray on one door and coughing blue smoke as it slowed. He parked crookedly behind the Buick. For a moment he remained behind the wheel, staring at the wounded house. Then he got out without a coat. He looked older than he had at Christmas. Sawdust clung to his dark hair, and a reddish bruise marked one knuckle. He crossed the street, opened Marlene's car door, and crouched beside her as though she might be injured. "You eat anything?" "Crackers. That's not food. It says peanut butter." He glanced into the back seat. His eyes stopped on Frank's thermos, but he said nothing. Instead, he took her suitcase and the important box. Marlene climbed out, stiff from sitting. "I need to go inside before we leave." Ben looked at the yellow tape. "What for?" "I want to check the bedrooms." "In a condemned house?" "It is not condemned. It's wearing caution tape, Mom. There are things that need to be moved before Dave's crew comes." "Who's Dave?" "The contractor who doesn't come." Ben studied her, then looked up at the 3-bedroom windows. "Okay," he said. "Show me what everybody was too busy to make room for." Ben ducked under the yellow tape before Marlene could lift it for him. "That defeats the purpose," she said. "What purpose?" "It's at knee height. It tells people not to enter. Then we should listen. We're already entering." He looked back at her. "I've missed this." Marlene unlocked the front door. A paper sign taped across it instructed all visitors to wear protective masks. Beneath the sign, Dave had left a box of them on the porch. She handed one to Ben. He put it on upside down. "You restore furniture for a living. Wood doesn't breathe back." Inside, the house smelled of wet plaster, pine disinfectant, and something sour hiding beneath both. Plastic walls divided the hallway. Extension cords crossed the floor in bright orange loops, though the drying fans had been removed days ago. Ben set the suitcase and important box inside the door. His joking expression disappeared as he looked into the dining room. The ceiling was gone. Most of the blue leaf wallpaper had been stripped, leaving pale rectangles where framed photographs once hung. The oak table stood on blocks beneath a clear tarp. A stack of labeled cartons filled the corner where the china cabinet had been. "Elaine sent pictures," he said. "It looks smaller in pictures. Most disasters do." "Where's Dad's chair?" The living room furniture went to a cleaning warehouse. Even the chair, especially the chair, it was directly under the leak from the upstairs hall. Ben stepped closer to the plastic barrier. For a moment, Marlene thought he might lift it and walk through. Instead, he pinched one corner between two fingers, then let it fall. Did they say if it can be saved? They said they would evaluate it. That means no. It means they will evaluate it. He gave her a look she recognized from his adolescence, when she used to insist that Frank was not angry, only tired. Marlene headed toward the stairs. "You said the bedrooms," Ben said. "Which one?" "All of them need checking." "Of course they do." The upstairs hallway had been stripped to subfloor. Black arrows and measurements covered the exposed wood. The bathroom door stood open, revealing a section of missing wall and the copper pipe that had caused everything. It was surprisingly narrow. Marlene had expected the guilty object to look more substantial. She entered Elaine's room first. The brass bed had been dismantled and leaned against one wall. Elaine's old white dresser remained beneath plastic, its drawers taped shut. Cartons filled most of the closet. "I need those taken downstairs," Marlene said. Ben read the nearest labels. Thanksgiving linens, formal glassware, blue china, serving pieces. "This is all Elaine's. Some of it was my mother's. Elaine wanted it, but she doesn't have room. She has 4 bedrooms. Bedrooms aren't for china. Apparently they aren't for mothers either." "Ben," he held up both hands, masking up my mouth now. He lifted the first carton. His knees bent, and he grunted. "What's in this? The plates or grandma?" "Don't drop it." Excellent guidance. Marlene directed him down the hall to Todd's room, the least damaged of the 3. Its blue curtains were 30 years old, but still good. Frank had built the bookcase along the far wall, sizing its bottom shelves for Todd's record collection. Todd had taken the records and left the bookcase. He had also left 2 lamps, an artificial Christmas tree, tax files dating to his first marriage, a box of bowling trophies, and a frame print of a golfer standing in fog. Ben set Elaine's carton beside the Christmas tree. "You're moving her things into his room?" "Temporarily." "So, Todd's room is the Switzerland of junk. Would you rather carry everything downstairs?" "No. Switzerland's beautiful." Marlene inspected the ceiling near the window. The moisture crew had drawn a circle there and written dry in green marker. She pressed her palm against it anyway. "Mom, if the professional moisture people say it's dry, the professional moisture people said they'd be finished in 3 days." "Fair." She opened Todd's closet. More cartons. His college notebooks occupied one shelf, and 6 of Frank's flannel shirts hung from the rail. Ben stopped joking. Marlene had forgotten she put them there. After the funeral, Elaine had offered to help sort Frank's clothes. Todd wanted his father's brown winter coat. Ben had said he did not need anything. Marlene gave bags of dress shirts to a church donation drive, but kept the flannels because they still smelled faintly of sawdust and Old Spice. The scent was gone now. She lifted a sleeve to her face and found only stale fabric. "You want those?" Ben asked. "They're in the way." "That wasn't what I asked." She took down all 6 shirts, folded them over her arm, and walked to the smallest bedroom. Ben's old room faced the backyard. Rain dotted the window above his narrow maple bed. The records stood in 6 milk crates along the wall, exactly where they had been when Ben moved out for the last time at 27. "You still have the Kinks album," he said. "I don't know what I have." He crouched beside the crates and flipped through them. "You told me these got damaged when the basement flooded. That was a different box. We've had enough water incidents for you to lose track. It was 15 years ago, and you never came to get them. You said you threw them away. I said I might." Ben pulled out an album and examined the cover. His eyes had gone soft above the mask. Marlene placed Frank's shirts on the bed. "Take the records," she said. "Where?" "Home. My home has 300 square feet and a bathtub currently holding chair clamps." "That sounds hygienic." "They're clean clamps. You have been asking about these records for years. I was asking if they existed. That's different from having space for them. Then I will leave them with the restoration people." "Absolutely not." Marlene folded her arms. Ben looked at the 6 crates, then at the narrow stairway beyond the door. "You planned this. I did not burst a pipe to make you collect your belongings." "Can't prove that." His phone rang before either of them moved a crate. He glanced at the screen and silenced it. "A customer?" Marlene asked. "Leah." The name meant something, though Marlene had to search for it. Ben had mentioned a Leah who shared some of his workshop equipment. Or perhaps Todd had mentioned her after seeing a photograph online. "You should answer. I can call her from the truck. You said she was helping with your delivery. She is. Then she needs to know you left. She knows? Does she know why?" Ben slid the phone into his pocket. can we postpone the audit until I've carried 6 crates of records down wet stairs? The word audit was not accidental. Frank had used it whenever Marlene asked Ben a reasonable question about his life, and Ben did not want to answer. All right, she said. I also need clothes from my room. Her bedroom was untouched by water, but entering it was worse than seeing the ruined dining room. Frank's side of the bed remained made. His reading glasses lay on the nightstand atop a paperback about Civil War railroads. Marlene had dusted around them for more than a year. Ben stayed in the doorway. She opened her dresser and selected underwear, socks, 2 sweaters, and another pair of slacks. She moved briskly, refusing to decide what it meant to pack for an unknown number of nights in her son's apartment. Hand me that blue bag, she said. Ben retrieved a canvas duffel from the closet shelf. On the way down, he carried the duffel, 2 record crates, and Frank's flannel shirts. Marlene carried her raincoat and 1 small carton of Elaine's glassware. At the bottom of the stairs, Ben pointed at the carton. That's not coming with us. I'm moving it away from the work area. Where? The front room. The front room with the missing ceiling? The ceiling is missing in the dining room. I'm beginning to understand why Dave doesn't come. She set the carton beside the important box. Her phone rang. Todd's name appeared. She considered letting it go, but Ben was watching. Hello? You get things figured out? Todd asked. For tonight. Which hotel? I'm going with Ben. A silence followed, then a sharp exhale. Why'd you drag Ben up there? I didn't drag him. He drove. You know he's got that old truck. And his place isn't set up for you. I'm aware. I sent you 2 hotel links. One has breakfast. Then perhaps you and Paige should try it. Todd missed the insult, or chose not to hear it. I'm just saying you'd be more comfortable. Marlene looked at Ben, who was pretending to inspect an electrical cord. Comfort was not the only consideration, she said. What does that mean? It means I need to go. Before Todd could answer, she ended the call. Ben raised his eyebrows. Not a word. I didn't say anything. Your face is loud. It's genetic. They loaded the truck in the rain. Ben wedged the record crates behind the seats and wrapped Frank's shirts in a clean furniture blanket. Marlene's suitcase went beneath a tarp in the bed. The important box rode on her lap because there was nowhere else safe for it. The truck's heater blew cold air for the first 15 minutes. A coffee cup rolled beneath Marlene's feet whenever Ben turned. The dashboard was crowded with receipts, pencils, a tape measure, and a tiny wooden duck with 1 wing missing. Seatbelt works, Ben said as they reached the highway. Before you ask. I wasn't going to. You looked at it. I was checking for fraying. Normal passenger behavior. Her phone buzzed twice. The first message was from Todd. Just think this through. The second was from Elaine. Call me when you're settled. Neither message mentioned calling Ben or making room. Marlene turned the phone face down on the important box. 20 miles later, Ben pulled into a diner with a red roof. I'm not hungry, she said. You ate crackers. I can wait. I can't. I missed lunch. Inside, he ordered meatloaf before opening the menu. Marlene chose soup, then changed it to a turkey sandwich after Ben stared at her. When the waitress left, Marlene said, I'll stay 2 or 3 nights. That gives me time to find another arrangement. You don't have to. You have work. I always have work. You have Leah. Ben tore open a sugar packet and poured it into coffee he had already sweetened. What about Leah? You tell me. She works downstairs. That wasn't my question. You didn't ask one. Marlene let the silence sit between them. Ben lasted 11 seconds. We're seeing each other, he said. Sort of. Does she know I'm coming? He stirred his coffee. Benjamin, I texted her from the driveway. What did you say? That I was bringing you back. For dinner? I didn't specify. Marlene leaned back. You cannot move a person into your home and notify the woman you are seeing with a vague text. I didn't move a person. I brought my mother somewhere safe. Those are not mutually exclusive. His jaw tightened. For a second he looked so much like Frank that Marlene nearly reached across the table and touched his face. Then Ben said, She was already annoyed with me, so this may not significantly affect the data. The workshop windows were glowing when they arrived after dark. Through the glass, Marlene saw a tall woman in coveralls guiding a sander across the top of a walnut cabinet. Leah switched off the machine as Ben parked. She came outside wiping her hands on a rag. Her silver-streaked hair was twisted up with a pencil, and her expression moved from relief to surprise when Marlene stepped down from the truck. "Mrs. Keating," she said. "Marlene, please." Ben reached for the suitcase. "Mom's going to stay upstairs for a little while." "How little?" Leah asked. "Repairs little." Leah looked at him, not Marlene. "That is not a unit of time." "I only need a few nights," Marlene said. "Of course." Leah's voice warmed immediately. "You must be exhausted." But when Ben turned toward the stairs, Leah caught his sleeve. "You could have called me," she said quietly. "My mother was sitting in her car. I'm not saying you should have left her there." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you could have called." Marlene pretended to study the wooden duck on the dashboard. Above them, the apartment windows were dark. Behind her, the truck bed held her suitcase, her dead husband's shirts, and 6 crates belonging to a son who had never had enough room for his own past. Leah released Ben's sleeve. "Take her upstairs," she said. "I'll finish the cabinet." Ben carried Marlene's suitcase toward the narrow staircase. He did not look back, and neither did Leah. The outside stairs were slick. Ben climbed ahead of Marlene with her suitcase bumping against his leg, then stopped at the landing while she caught her breath without admitting she needed to. "I can take that box," he said. "I have it. You're holding it under your chin. It's secure." The important box was not secure. One bottom flap had begun to sag from the weight of paper, chargers, and Frank's plastic-wrapped death certificate. Ben took it before she could protest and balanced both pieces of luggage against the apartment door. It stuck halfway open. "You have to lift and push," he said. "That seems safe in a fire. I don't plan to have a fire." "Did you plan the screaming faucet?" "The faucet is expressing itself." He shoved the door with his hip. The apartment was warmer than Marlene remembered and more crowded. A refinished dresser stood against the living room wall with its drawers removed. Chair legs, wood samples, and rolled sketches occupied the small dining table. The cratered sofa faced a television perched on a fruit crate. A pile of clean laundry filled an armchair. At least she hoped it was clean. Ben looked around as if seeing the room through her eyes had doubled its contents. "I was going to straighten up." "When?" "Before my mother appeared in the parking lot." "I did not appear. I called," with crisis magic. Marlene set Frank's thermos on the kitchen counter. Ben moved the laundry from the armchair to the dresser and the wood samples from the table to the laundry. "Fixed," he said. "Nothing is fixed. The obstruction has migrated. The first rule of small space living." He carried her suitcase into the bedroom. The bed was unmade, and one of the pillows had no case. A pair of jeans hung from a lamp. Ben stripped off the sheets with one sweeping motion, trapping the jeans inside them. "I have clean ones." "Where?" He opened the closet. 2 chair frames, a vacuum cleaner, and several shirts leaned toward him. "Somewhere." "I can sleep on the sofa." "No." "You have to be at work in the morning. I'm sleeping 30 feet from work." "You won't sleep on that cushion." "I've conducted years of research proving otherwise." Marlene started to lift the mattress corner so she could remove the fitted sheet. Ben blocked her with his body. "Sit down for 5 minutes. I have been sitting all day. Then stand somewhere that isn't helping." His tone was light, but the instruction was not. Marlene stepped into the bathroom. The faucet screamed exactly as promised. It emitted a high metallic shriek when she turned the left handle, then coughed brown water before running clear. "Benjamin." "It clears up." "Brown water should not have a clearing up period. The building's old." "So am I." "I don't spit rust." He appeared behind her holding a blue towel. "Hot water takes a minute. Don't lean on the sink." "The left corner's loose." "What can I lean on?" "Me, if necessary." The answer came without humor. Marlene glanced at him in the spotted mirror. He looked away first and hung the towel on a hook. Leah knocked once before entering with folded sheets and a covered bowl. "Found these in the workshop dryer," she said. "They're clean, despite their location." "Thank you." Marlene took the sheets. "You didn't have to." "I know. That's how gifts work." Ben reached for them, but Leah handed him the bowl instead. "Stew. You can heat it tomorrow, or forget it exists and let it become a science project." "I don't do that." Leah opened the refrigerator, moved 2 jars, and placed the bowl on the top shelf. "You threw away my chili with the spoon still in it. It had become one object." She closed the refrigerator with more force than necessary. Marlene busied herself shaking out the fitted sheet. The cabinet looked beautiful. "It will," Leah said. "Friday," Ben added. Leah's eyebrows rose. "Friday," he repeated. She looked at Marlene, and her face softened. "There's a diner at the corner if you need breakfast. The woman who runs it is Celia. Tell her you're with us and she'll overfeed you. I can manage breakfast. I'm sure you can." There was no insult in it, which somehow made Marlene feel more exposed. Leah touched Ben's arm on her way out. It might have been affection or warning. With the two of them, Marlene suspected the same gesture often served as both. "I'll finish the drawer," Leah said. "I'll be down in 20 minutes. You're exhausted. So are you." "Yes, that was my point." After she left, Ben put the clean sheets on the bed, while Marlene stood at the foot holding two corners he did not need her to hold. "She seems sensible," Marlene said. "She is. How long have you been seeing each other? Not long enough for this conversation. That could mean 2 weeks or 10 years with you. 7 months. Marlene released her corners. 7 months? We were friends first. Does Elaine know? Why would Elaine know? She knows everything. She knows everything people make the mistake of telling her. The sheet snapped between them. Ben tucked his side beneath the mattress. "Are you serious about her?" Marlene asked. "Are you going to ask if she's serious about me?" I was working up to it. He gave a tired laugh. "Go brush your teeth, Mom." When she came out, he had cleared the jeans from the lamp and put a case on the second pillow. Frank's flannel shirts lay folded on the chair. Marlene touched the top one. "I didn't ask you to bring these. You carried them out of the closet. They were in the way. They can be in the way here." She wanted to argue, but Ben had already taken his pillow into the living room. Through the wall, she heard him arrange himself on the sofa. The springs complained, then went quiet. Somewhere below, a sander started and stopped. Leah was still working. Marlene lay beneath Ben's gray blanket and stared at a thin crack in the ceiling. She could not remember the last time she had slept in one of her children's beds. When they were young, she had sometimes sat beside them during thunderstorms. Frank believed people learned courage by being left alone with things that frightened them. Marlene believed everyone deserved company until the worst noise passed. She had never asked which belief her children remembered. Her phone glowed on the nightstand. Elaine had written, "Are you settled?" Marlene typed, "Yes." Ben gave me his room. 3 dots appeared, vanished, then returned. That's kind of him. "Call tomorrow." Todd had sent nothing. Marlene placed the phone face down. At some point, the sander below stopped. The building settled around her in pops and groans. From the living room came Ben's low voice. "I know," he said. A pause. "No, Leah, I know." Marlene pulled the blanket higher and tried not to listen. "I didn't think," Ben said. "I just went." Another pause. Longer. She was in her car. His voice broke on the final word, so slightly that Marlene might have imagined it. She did not sleep for a long time. When she woke, the room was gray with early light. Frank's shirt still lay on the chair. For one disoriented second, she thought she was home, and that he had left them there for her to complain about. Then the furnace rattled beneath the floor, and she remembered. Ben was asleep on the sofa with one foot on the carpet. The blanket had slipped to his waist. His neck was bent at an angle that would make him useless by noon. Marlene covered him, then went into the kitchen. The refrigerator contained eggs, mustard, beer, half an onion, and Leah's stew. The freezer held coffee and 2 ice trays, one filled with screws. She found bread in a cabinet beside a package of sandpaper. The coffee filters were beneath the sink, flattened behind a bottle of wood glue. By 7, she had made scrambled eggs, toast, and coffee strong enough to remove paint. Ben wandered in, scratching his chest. "Why does it smell responsible in here? Sit down." He looked at the plate she set before him. "You didn't have to do this." "I know. That's how gifts work. You were listening. I listened to everyone. That's terrifying." He ate standing at the counter, though Marlene had cleared one end of the table. Halfway through the eggs, he glanced toward the living room. "Did you cover me up? You looked cold." "I was fine. You were folded like a pocket knife. That's how I sleep. No wonder you're shaped that way." He smiled into his coffee. After breakfast, Ben carried the record crates upstairs from the truck and stacked them beside the dresser. Then he went down to the workshop, promising to return at noon. Marlene lasted 23 minutes before she began cleaning. She washed the skillet and found there was nowhere sensible to put it. Pans occupied 2 low cabinets, along with rags, a drill, and 4 cans of furniture wax. She moved the drill and wax to the hall closet, shifted the pans into one cabinet, and stacked the baking dishes in the other. The dishes were dusty enough to suggest Ben had not baked anything since moving in. She wiped the counters, sorted the mail into piles, and placed the past-due-looking envelopes on top. Most were not past due. They simply looked nervous. She gathered empty bottles for recycling, folded the clean laundry, and found 3 unmatched socks, a restaurant receipt from January, and a small velvet box. Marlene did not open the box. She set it on the dresser beneath the lamp, then stared at it. 7 months, Ben had said. A ring would not necessarily be a fortune. It could be cufflinks, though Ben had no occasion for cufflinks. It could hold a small tool. Some tools apparently needed velvet. She covered it with the folded jeans and returned to the kitchen. At 10, her phone rang. "Do you have your sewing things with you?" Elaine asked. "Good morning to you, too." "Good morning. How did you sleep?" "Fine. Is the bathroom usable?" Marlene looked at the loose sink. "It has personality." Elaine laughed, relieved that the conversation had become manageable. "I have a favor. The sleeves on my navy dress need taking up before Saturday. The tailor can't fit me in." Marlene opened her mouth. The answer yes was already there, polished from years of use. "Bring it down," she said. "To Ben's?" "Unless you want me to sew it over the telephone. Mark can drop it Friday." "He has a meeting near Dayton." Marlene frowned. "Friday for Saturday? It's just the sleeves. You always do them in an hour." Footsteps sounded on the outer stairs. Ben entered carrying a tape measure and stopped when he heard Elaine's voice through the phone. "Fine," Marlene said. "Have him call first. You're a lifesaver. I love you." Elaine hung up. Ben remained by the door. "What?" "You've been here less than a day. It's a hem. It's sleeves." "Thank you, Mr. Sewing." She said sleeves. Marlene picked up a dish towel. "Why are you upstairs?" "To get the 1/4-inch chisel that lives in the second kitchen drawer. It does not live there now." Ben slowly turned toward the cabinets. "Where does it live?" "In the hall closet with the drill. The hall closet has no light, so put in a light." He opened the second drawer. It now held silverware, measuring spoons and pot holders. "Where are my pencils?" "Top drawer. My top drawer, the top drawer. Mom." "What?" He closed it carefully. "I know you're trying to help. I made breakfast and cleaned your kitchen. If that is a hardship, I will stop. That isn't what I said. It is what your face is saying. My face is asking where anything is. It's organized. It was organized. There were screws in your ice tray. They needed to freeze." Marlene stared at him. "It's a wood thing," he said. "The cold contracts metal." She folded the towel again, though it was already folded. Ben rubbed a hand over his hair. "Just ask me before you move stuff. I did not realize the coffee filters required permission. Not the coffee filters, my work things, my mail, all of it." The apartment suddenly felt as small as it was. Marlene looked at the neat piles she had made, at the counter she had wiped, at the velvet box hidden beneath his jeans. "I understand," she said. Ben glanced toward the dresser. His expression changed. He crossed the room, lifted the jeans, and picked up the box. For a moment he held it without speaking. "I didn't open it," Marlene said. "I know. Is it for Leah?" "No." The answer came too quickly. He put the box in his pocket, found the chisel in the dark closet, and paused at the door. "Thank you for breakfast," he said. Marlene nodded. When he went downstairs, she stood in the clean kitchen with nothing left to improve. Marlene took her purse and walked to the diner. The rain had stopped, leaving the sidewalks dark and slick. Across the street, a tire shop was opening its bay doors. 2 men rolled a stack of tires outside, while arguing about whether a raccoon could recognize itself in a mirror. The diner smelled of bacon and old coffee. A woman with cropped white hair looked up from behind the register. "You must be Ben's mother." Marlene paused. "Do I resemble him?" "No, but he texted me." Of course he had. Ben could not tell Leah his mother was moving into his apartment, but he could alert the local breakfast authorities. The woman came around the counter and held out her hand. "Celia Ruiz. Sit anywhere. He said to feed you. I have money." "He said you'd say that too. I'm not hungry." "Also covered." Celia guided her toward a booth by the window. Marlene ordered tea to prevent further management and opened the browser on her phone. She searched furnished rooms near Ben. The first result displayed a bright studio with a white sofa no person had ever sat on. The monthly cost was more than her mortgage had been before Frank paid it off. The second required a 6-month lease and 2 months deposit. The third included the phrase vibrant communal environment, which sounded like enforced conversation. She called a place 12 minutes away. A man named Stewart answered and asked if she had pets, smoked, worked nights, played instruments, or objected to reptiles. No to all 5. Great. I keep 2 bearded dragons in the living room, then perhaps I should object to reptiles. They stay in their habitat mostly. Marlene ended the call. Celia brought tea and a plate holding 2 pieces of toast, scrambled eggs, and sliced tomatoes. I didn't order this, I know. Does anyone in this town respect a direct statement? Not before noon. Her phone rang. She hoped it was Dave. It was Noreen. How's Ben's place? Noreen asked. Small. How's Ben? Also small. Noreen laughed. You could have called me, you know. You have your sister coming. Next month. You said she was coming this month. I said she might. Well, Ben came. The words sounded sharper than Marlene intended. Noreen let them settle. She was good at that. Frank had disliked pauses and usually filled them with instructions. I'm glad he did, Noreen said. But my guest room exists too. I'll keep that in mind. Which means you won't. I said I would. You say lots of things. Marlene glanced at Celia, who was wiping an already clean counter while plainly listening. I need to go, Marlene said. Call me tonight. And don't tell me everything's handled unless you can name who handled it. After they disconnected, Celia refilled Marlene's tea. Old friend? She asked. Persistent friend? Best kind. That depends what you're trying to avoid. Celia smiled as if Marlene had confirmed something. When Marlene returned to the workshop, the wide garage door was open. Sunlight fell across a floor marked with sawdust and cart tracks. The walnut cabinet stood in the center on padded blocks, its surface glowing deep brown beneath hanging work lights. It was beautiful. Its front curved gently instead of forming a straight line. 4 drawers appeared seamless until Ben pressed one, and it slid open without a handle. The legs had been shaped so lightly the heavy cabinet seemed balanced on its toes. Marlene stopped near the doorway. Ben stood at one end, running his fingertips along the top. Leah was crouched with a flashlight, examining the underside. You made that? Marlene asked. Ben looked up. Most of it. He made all of it, Leah said. I made sure he stopped making it. I had to redo a drawer. 3 drawers. The grain was wrong. The grain was wood. Ben ignored her. What do you think? Marlene stepped closer. She knew enough from Frank to look at the joints, though Frank's furniture had been square, sturdy, and built without patience for decoration. Ben's cabinet held no visible nails or screws. The walnut pattern continued across the drawer fronts like a dark river. I think your father would have turned it over to see how you joined the legs. Ben's mouth tightened. Then he crouched and tipped the flashlight upward, dovetails into the base frame. Marlene bent beside him. The joint was neat enough to seem grown rather than cut. He would have approved, she said. He would have told me the legs were too thin. He would have approved while saying the legs were too thin. Leah stood. That is the most accurate description of Frank I've heard. Marlene looked at her. You knew him? A little. He came down here once? Ben straightened so quickly his shoulder struck the cabinet. When? Marlene asked. Years ago, he said. It wasn't a big thing. Leah looked from him to Marlene and seemed to decide she had stepped near an uncovered hole. We need to wrap this, she said. Before Marlene could ask more, a black sedan pulled into the lot. Mark got out holding a garment bag. Elaine's husband dressed for every occasion as though a photographer might appear. Even on a Friday afternoon, his shoes shone. He glanced at the workshop, the cabinet, and Ben's battered truck with the polite interest of a man visiting a historical village. Marlene. He kissed her cheek. You doing okay? I'm standing up. Good, good. He offered the garment bag. A note was pinned to the front in Elaine's precise handwriting. 1/2 inch. Keep original cuffs if possible. Elaine said you'd know what that means. I do. Mark looked toward the exterior stairs. You're really staying here? For now. I thought the plan was another hotel. The plan changed when the first hotel stopped being paid for. His forehead creased. Elaine said insurance was handling everything. It was. Until yesterday. Oh. Marlene waited. Mark shifted his keys between his hands. I asked if I could use your guest room, she said. You did? Elaine said the 2 of you needed privacy. Mark looked toward the street as if Elaine might be standing there with cue cards. Well, things have been stressful. You're restructuring. Right. Yes. Are you sleeping in separate rooms? His head snapped back. What? Elaine said she's been using the guest room. Once. I was sick and snoring. Marlene folded the garment bag over her arm. Mark's discomfort increased visibly. You know you're welcome at our house. Do I? Of course. Elaine doesn't seem to know. That's not fair. No, Marlene said. It isn't. Ben appeared beside the cabinet carrying a roll of foam. He did not interrupt. He did not need to. Mark's expression changed as soon as he noticed him listening. I'm sure Elaine was trying to protect everybody, Mark said. From what? Ben asked. Mark gave a short laugh. You know how these situations get complicated. Ben looked around the workshop. Seems pretty simple from here. Marlene touched his arm before he could continue. Thank you for bringing the dress, she told Mark. He nodded, relieved by the exit. Call if you need anything. Marlene almost asked whether that offer included a bed. Instead, she watched him cross the lot and drive away. Ben returned to wrapping the cabinet. Leah handed Marlene a clean moving blanket without comment. Together, they folded it around one end while Ben secured the other. You don't have to help, he said. I know. The cabinet was collected at 3 by 2 men from a delivery service. Ben walked around their truck twice checking straps. Leah photographed every corner before the doors closed. When the truck pulled away, Ben stood in the empty space it left. You got another project? Marlene asked. Several. Anything as large? One dining table, a pair of chairs, the ruined rocker and back. He says several when he means late, Leah said. I'm not late. You finished the Hensley cabinet at 2:45 on delivery day. That is still on delivery day. Leah swept foam scraps into a pile. You were supposed to come to Cincinnati with me tonight. Ben looked at Marlene. She wished he had not. I have no reason you can't go, she said. I will be fine upstairs. It's an overnight, Leah said. A supplier show. We planned it 6 weeks ago. Then you should go. Ben rubbed his bruised knuckle. I can't leave Mom here without a car. I have 2 functioning legs and enough money for a taxi. You were looking at rooms all morning. How do you know? Celia. Marlene stared at him. Does Celia send reports? Only when people look sad over eggs. I did not look sad. She used the word grim. Leah leaned the broom against the wall. Go upstairs and talk. I'm going home to pack. If you decide to come, meet me at 6. If you decide not to, tell me before 6. She kissed Ben, quick and firm, then turned to Marlene. You don't have to apologize, she said. I wasn't going to. Leah's smile was tired. That may be where he gets it. Upstairs, Ben put the garment bag on the bedroom door. You don't have to sew that. I said I would. You said yes before thinking, I thought. For half a second. I can help my daughter with a dress without it becoming a moral crisis. I didn't say it was a moral crisis. You're making the face. What face? The one your father made when he thought I was volunteering for too much. Ben went still. Dad never cared when you volunteered for us. That is not true. He cared when you volunteered for other people because then you weren't available here. Marlene laid the dress on the bed and unzipped the bag. The navy fabric was heavier than it looked. You should go with Leah, she said. Don't change the subject. I'm not. You made plans, and now you're here. I am not a natural disaster, Benjamin. No, you're my mother. That is not an emergency either. His phone rang on the counter. He looked at the screen. Dave, he said. Marlene reached for it before remembering it was not her phone. Ben answered and handed it to her. Dave sounded breathless, as if calling while escaping something. Marlene, we hit a scheduling snag. Drywall crew can't start Monday. When can they? I'm pushing for the week after next. Pushing or promising, pushing hard. And after drywall, floors, paint, trim. Best case scenario, don't say that. A silence. Realistically, Dave said, you're looking at another 6 to 8 weeks. Marlene sat on the edge of Ben's bed. Across the room, Elaine's dress waited to be altered. Frank's shirts rested on the chair. Ben stood near the door, watching her without asking what Dave had said. He already knew. Down in the street, a horn sounded twice. Leah arriving early or warning him not to be late. Marlene looked at the cracked ceiling, the narrow doorway, and the son who had given her the only bed he owned. Go pack, she told him. I have some calls to make. Ben did not move. The horn sounded again. You heard me, Marlene said. I'm not leaving you alone here. I was alone in a motel for 26 days. That wasn't good either. It was perfectly adequate. The towels were the size of postage stamps, but I survived. He glanced toward the window. Leah can go without me. She can. She shouldn't have to. This isn't about her. That may be the problem. Ben's face closed. Marlene recognized the moment when he decided an argument had become unsafe and began packing himself away from it. She softened her voice. I have food, a phone, and your neighbors apparently operate a surveillance network. Go keep the plans you made. What calls are you making? Dave. The insurance company, your brother and sister. Why them? Because if the floors have to come up, the rooms have to be emptied. Ben looked toward the stack of records. Mine are out. For the first time in 11 years, you are ahead of your siblings. That feels dangerous. Go. He packed a canvas bag in 6 irritated minutes. He showed Marlene how to lock the apartment door, where he kept a flashlight, and which stair tread felt loose. You already told me about the stair. I'm telling you again. I'm not losing my memory, I know. He put his truck key on the counter. I am not driving your truck, for emergencies. The brakes squeal. They like to communicate. Everything you own has a voice. He stopped in the doorway. Call me if you need anything. I won't. That isn't reassuring. Marlene looked at him until he smiled despite himself. Fine, she said. I will call if the building catches fire, the faucet becomes violent, or Celia stops feeding people. Last one's a sign of the apocalypse. Leah waited beside her car with the engine running. Through the window, Marlene watched Ben load his bag. Leah said something that made him look up toward the apartment. Marlene stepped away before either could see her. The garment bag lay across the bed. She had no proper sewing basket, only a small travel kit she carried for loose buttons. Elaine had pinned the sleeves with 4 safety pins and included matching thread wrapped around a square of cardboard. Marlene sat beneath the lamp, turned the first cuff inside out, and began opening the stitching. It was exact work, quiet work, the kind that allowed her hands to know what to do while the rest of her failed to settle. She had altered Elaine's first interview suit at the dining room table. She had shortened Todd's trousers for Frank's funeral. Ben had once bought a vintage jacket 2 sizes too large because he liked the fabric, and Marlene rebuilt the shoulders while he watched, fascinated, asking why every seam existed. She could not remember the last time any of them had asked whether she still enjoyed sewing. When the first cuff was open, she called Dave. Will every upstairs room need to be cleared? She asked. Anything sitting directly on the floor should come out. Beds, dressers, boxes. We can move the big pieces to one side and work around them, but it adds labor. Does insurance cover that labor? Depends how they categorize contents manipulation. Those are 2 words pretending to explain something. Dave laughed nervously. He promised to send a written estimate. Marlene told him not to schedule anything until she saw it. Then she called Elaine. Her daughter answered in a whisper. I'm in a meeting. Call when you're out. Is something wrong? The repairs will take another 6 to 8 weeks. Everything in the upstairs rooms needs to be moved. A pause. Elaine's voice returned at normal volume. 6 to 8? Yes. Where will you stay? Marlene stared at the open cuff in her lap. I haven't decided. You can't stay over that workshop for 2 months. No. I'll research places tonight. I can research my own lodging. I was only trying to help. I need you to collect the things stored in your old room. The china, linens, glassware. Dave charges extra if his crew moves them. I can't take all that right now. Why? Where would I put it? One of your bedrooms? The silence that followed was not empty. Marlene could hear Elaine fitting pieces together and disliking the picture. Is this because I said you couldn't stay? You said it wasn't a good season for company. I explained what's going on with Mark. Mark explained too. Mark? He brought the dress. What did he say? That the 2 of you are fine. We are not fine. We are working on things. He said you used the guest room once because he was snoring. That is not the point. Then tell me the point. Elaine lowered her voice again. The point is, you called out of nowhere and asked to move in for an indefinite amount of time. I asked for a room until my house was repaired. At the time, you said 4 weeks. Now it's 2 months. At the time, I had nowhere to sleep that night. You didn't say that. I should not have needed to. Marlene heard a door close on Elaine's end. If you were truly stranded, I would have made something work, Elaine said. I told you the motel coverage was ending. You made it sound like you had options. I was trying not to make you feel guilty. Well, that worked beautifully. The bitterness surprised them both. Marlene put down the seam ripper. I need your things removed by the end of next week. You're punishing me. I'm preparing my house for repairs. You kept those things for years. I had room then. Elaine inhaled sharply. Marlene closed her eyes. The line had been cruel and also true, which made it worse. I have to go back to my meeting, Elaine said. Mark is collecting the dress at 5. I know. The call ended. Marlene sat motionless until the needle in her fingers began to hurt. Then she finished both sleeves. Mark arrived at 5:30. He climbed the stairs, knocked, and waited outside rather than coming in. That was fast, he said when she handed him the garment bag. It was an inch of fabric. Elaine said, half an inch. Half an inch finished requires an inch of fabric. Right? He draped the bag over his arm. She's upset. So am I. She thinks you're making this about the room. It is about the room. Mark looked at her. Marlene gripped the edge of the door. I'm not asking you to take sides. Good. But don't stand here and pretend you would have welcomed me if only Elaine had used the right words. You live there too. His face reddened. I didn't know how serious it was, he said. You knew my house had no ceiling. I mean the hotel situation. Now you know? The hallway remained quiet except for the furnace. Mark adjusted the garment bag. If it comes down to it, we can discuss something. There it was, not an invitation. A meeting about the possibility of an invitation. No, Marlene said. You don't need to discuss me. She closed the door gently because slamming it would have given him something easier to object to. Leah's stew tasted better than it looked. Marlene ate at the cleared table, then moved Ben's pencils and quarter-inch chisel back into the second kitchen drawer. She left the silverware where she had put it. Compromise did not require surrender. Todd called while she was washing the bowl. Elaine says you're clearing out the house. I'm clearing the bedrooms for repairs. What do you need me to do? The question lifted her spirits until he continued. I can go over Sunday and get Dad's planer and the router. Those are not in the bedrooms. They shouldn't be around workers. The garage is locked. I have a key. I don't want anyone entering until I'm there. I'm not anyone. No. You're the person with a dining set, tax files, lamps, golf clubs, college notebooks, and a Christmas tree in my house. The dining set was Dad's too. He helped you build it, so it should stay in the family. It has been staying in the family. It has been staying with me. Todd sighed. What's going on with you? My house is damaged. I have no permanent place to sleep. The contractor says your possessions are going to cost me money to move. I told you I'd help with hotel prices. I don't need help shopping for a room. I needed a room. Are we going to do this now? Marlene looked at the pan cabinet she had organized without permission. No, she said. We are going to do something else. You are going to collect everything that belongs to you by next Friday. You will arrange a time with me. You will not enter the house without me. Paige doesn't want all that stuff. Neither do I. Where am I supposed to put it? I am discovering that is not a question anyone asks until the belongings are theirs. Todd was quiet. I'll take the tools Sunday, he said. No. Dad said I could have them. Frank said a lot of things in a garage. He wanted me to have the planer. And did he give it to you? He didn't think he had to rush. The words landed harder than Todd intended. Marlene knew because his next breath caught. No, she said. None of us did. She ended the call before grief could make them kind to each other too soon. Ben returned the next afternoon, carrying a paper bag of pastries and smelling of hotel soap. Leah followed with a stack of lumber samples under one arm. Celia said you ate, Ben said. Celia exaggerates. She said you paid for toast and stayed 2 hours. I was researching. Leah set the samples on the table, then noticed the pencils in the kitchen drawer. You moved his things back. Some of them. A successful diplomatic mission. Ben opened the refrigerator. You ate the stew. It was good. Leah made it. I assumed you didn't. Leah laughed. Ben looked pleased, though Marlene could not tell whether it was because she liked the stew or because the two women were getting along. His phone buzzed. He checked it and handed it to her. Noreen's name appeared above a photograph. Todd's truck sat in Marlene's driveway. Beneath it, Noreen had written, He says you know he's there. Do you? Marlene read the message twice. Ben saw her face. What happened? She turned the screen toward him. For once, he did not make a joke about Elaine's pillows or Todd's 3 bedrooms. He picked up his truck keys from the counter. We're going back, he said. Marlene reached for her coat. No. Mom, you're not going anywhere. Why? Because if I arrive with you, Todd will make this about the two of you. He's in your house after you told him not to be. I know. Her hands were steady as she pressed Todd's name. He will hear me better, she said, if I make him hear only me. Todd answered on the fifth ring. Hey, Mom, put the planer back. There was a scrape on his end, followed by the hollow metallic sound of something being set down. I'm just getting it out of the workers' way. The workers are not in the garage. They will be eventually. I told you not to enter without me. I thought you meant don't wander around the damaged part. I meant do not enter my house. It's a garage. Marlene looked at Ben. He stood beside the kitchen table with his keys still in his hand. Leah had moved near the window, giving Marlene privacy while remaining close enough to hear every word. Is Noreen there? Marlene asked. Todd lowered his voice. She's standing in the driveway like neighborhood security. Good. Unplug the planer, put it where it was, lock the garage, and give her your key. I'm not giving your neighbor my key. It is my key. You gave it to me, for emergencies. This is an emergency. You're clearing out the house. Then take your own belongings. I am taking something Dad promised me. Your father has been dead 18 months. That planer has not moved. I didn't have space. Marlene closed her eyes. The silence on Todd's end shifted. She could picture him in the garage beneath Frank's fluorescent lights, one hand on the machine's worn metal table. Frank had sharpened blades there on Sunday afternoons, while a baseball game played on the radio. Todd had often joined him. Ben usually stayed away, unless he needed to borrow something. Mom, Todd said, quieter, you don't use it. That does not mean you can take it after I said no. What are you going to do with Dad's tools? I don't know yet. Ben's been there 2 days and suddenly everything has to be decided. This has nothing to do with Ben. Of course it does. He's been waiting for a chance to make Elaine and me look selfish. Ben's grip tightened around the keys. Marlene turned her back to him. No one needed Ben's help with that, she said. Todd stopped breathing for a beat. The remark tasted satisfying for half a second. Then it tasted like blood. Fine, he said. You want to turn this into some loyalty contest? Go ahead. I asked for a room, Todd, and I offered to help you find one. I did not misplace a room. I needed someone to open a door. You always do this. Do what? Make everything sound simple so the person saying no becomes a monster. Marlene leaned against the counter. Put the planer back. Another long silence. Then she heard the machine's wheels squeak. You'll get your key, Todd said. He ended the call. Marlene kept the phone against her ear until Ben gently took it from her. You okay? He asked. Why does everyone keep asking me that after they have already decided the answer? Because you look like you're gonna throw my phone. It would not survive. It barely survives calls. Leah came away from the window. Do you want me to make tea? No. Good. Ben owns tea, but I've never seen evidence he knows what it is. I know what tea is. You thought chamomile was a kind of cheese. It sounds like cheese. Marlene laughed despite the ache behind her ribs. Leah's humor did not demand that she stop being angry before she was allowed to breathe. Her phone buzzed. Noreen had sent another message. He put it back. I have the key. He took his own table saw and called me a prison guard. Marlene typed, Thank you. Noreen replied, Prison guard says your room is ready. Marlene stared at the words. Ben read them over her shoulder. What room? Noreen's guest room. You said her sister was coming. Next month. Maybe. So, go there. The speed of his answer stung, though it was exactly what she had been planning to suggest. Ben saw her face. I don't mean leave now. I mean if you'd be more comfortable. I am comfortable. You called my faucet violent. It is violent. You can stay here as long as you need. Leah glanced toward the workshop below. Marlene noticed. Leah noticed her noticing. I don't mind you being here, Leah said. I minded finding out in the parking lot. I understand. I'm not sure he does. I'm standing right here, Ben said. That's why I said it now. Marlene picked up Frank's thermos and moved it from the counter to the table, then back again. The apartment had no neutral place for a dead man's leaking thermos. I need to go home tomorrow, she said. I have to see what Todd moved and talk to Dave. I'll drive you, Ben said. I can take a bus. I'll drive you. Then I'll bring my car back. And the rest of your things? Marlene looked toward the bedroom. I'll decide when I see Noreen's room. The next morning, Ben wrapped Frank's flannel shirts in the furniture blanket again. Marlene left the records where they were. She carried Elaine's empty garment bag downstairs and folded it into the back seat of the truck. Leah brought coffee for the road. You don't have to leave because of me, she told Marlene, while Ben checked the tarp over the luggage. I'm not. You sure? No, but I'm old enough to make uncertain decisions. Leah smiled. I'd like that on a plaque. Ben can make you one. He has several projects. He has several late projects. Ben slammed the truck bed. I can hear you both. The drive north was quieter than the first one. Marlene watched bare trees give way to low shopping centers and familiar highway exits. Ben kept both hands on the wheel. Twice he opened his mouth as if to speak, then turned up the radio instead. When they reached her street, Noreen was sweeping damp leaves from her front walk. She dropped the broom and hurried over before the truck had fully stopped. Noreen Alvarez was 71, broad-shouldered, and incapable of embracing anyone without patting their back as though dislodging something. She hugged Marlene, then Ben, who looked surprised, but submitted. You took your time, she said. We were 2 hours away. Still. She held out Todd's key. A strip of masking tape around it read, "For emergencies," in black marker. He made the label, Noreen said, very dramatically. Marlene pocketed the key. What did he take? His table saw, 2 boxes, and a lamp. He put your husband's machine back exactly where it was. I made him show me. Thank you. He called me a prison guard. You told us. I'm proud of it. The yellow tape had torn loose from one porch post. Ben retied it while Marlene unlocked the front door. The air inside was colder than before. Nothing appeared disturbed, but she checked every room anyway. In the garage, Todd's table saw was gone. The empty space beneath the window looked small compared with everything he had left. The planer stood near Frank's workbench with its cord looped over the handle. Ben ran a finger through dust on the metal top. Todd barely got this far, he said. He put it back. Because Noreen was watching him. Because I told him to. Ben looked toward the house. You always give us credit for the last thing we did and forget what it took to get us there. Is that about Todd? I don't know. Marlene waited, but he walked into the house. Voices sounded at the front door. Elaine entered carrying flattened cartons. Mark followed with a roll of bubble wrap, and an expression suggesting he had been drafted into military service. I thought we'd start with the China, Elaine said. Marlene blinked. Today? You gave me a deadline. I gave you next Friday. I have appointments all week. Elaine wore old jeans and no makeup. She looked younger and more tired without the careful surface she presented to the world. Ben came in from the kitchen. Oh, Elaine said, you're here. I drove Mom. I assumed. The words could have been harmless. They were not. Mark lifted the bubble wrap. Where do you want this? Dining room, Marlene said. They worked for an hour without discussing the room Elaine had refused. Marlene opened cartons while Elaine inspected each piece and wrapped it. Mark labeled boxes. Ben moved the packed ones to Elaine's car. A crystal pitcher emerged with a chipped rim. That wasn't chipped, Elaine said. It has been chipped since your wedding, Marlene replied. I would remember. You cried for 20 minutes because the florist brought peach roses. They were coral. They were orange. Mark wrote pitcher, chipped on the box. Elaine glared at him. You don't have to editorialize. Ben laughed from the doorway. For a moment, the room felt almost ordinary. Then Elaine held up a blue serving bowl that had belonged to Marlene's mother. You're sure you want me to take this? You wanted it. That was years ago. And I thought it would stay here until... Elaine stopped. Until what? Marlene asked. Elaine lowered the bowl. Until later. Later meant after Marlene no longer needed shelves, rooms, or opinions. The word hung between them. You should take what belongs to you, Marlene said. Elaine wrapped the bowl carefully. By late afternoon, the china cabinet cartons were gone. The closet upstairs was only half empty, but it was the first visible space Marlene had seen there in years. Noreen appeared in the front doorway, carrying a casserole dish. Prison inspection, she announced. Also dinner. She looked at the cleared section of floor and nodded approval. When Elaine and Mark left, Elaine hugged Marlene quickly. You could come with us tonight, she said. The offer was so quiet Ben could not hear it from the porch. For tonight? Marlene asked. Until we figure something out. And tomorrow? Elaine's arms loosened. Mom, I'm trying. I know. Marlene kissed her cheek. Take the bowl home. She watched their car disappear before crossing the street with Ben. Noreen's guest room was at the back of the house. It contained a double bed, a walnut dresser, a reading chair, and one framed photograph of a lighthouse. Half the closet stood empty. I cleared 2 refrigerator shelves, Noreen said. Top and middle. I don't share the bottom one because that's where food goes to die. Marlene opened the dresser. Empty. No china? She asked. Not a saucer. What would you charge? Noreen's face changed. You're not paying me. Then I'm not staying. They stared at each other. Fine, Noreen said. We'll discuss an amount. A reasonable one. I decide what is reasonable. You're already a terrible tenant. Ben stood in the doorway holding Frank's shirts. Marlene looked at the room, the cleared shelves, the closet waiting without history inside it. Bring in the suitcase, she said. Ben brought the suitcase in, followed by the important box. He set both beside the dresser, then returned with Frank's shirts. Where do you want these? Marlene opened the closet. Hang them there. He placed the shirts on the empty rail one at a time. 6 flannels filled nearly half the space. Noreen leaned against the doorframe. You planning to wear those? No. Then they're expensive roommates. They are not costing anything. We haven't settled rent. Ben glanced between them. Should I stay for this? No, both women said. Noreen proposed $300 a month. Marlene said that was insulting. Marlene proposed $600. Noreen said that was extortion committed against oneself. They argued through dinner and settled on $450, including utilities, with groceries kept separate except when separation became ridiculous. You don't owe me cooking or cleaning, Noreen said. I clean where I live. You clean your part. I clean mine. What if your part is dirty? You develop character. Ben sat at the end of the kitchen table, eating Noreen's chicken casserole. He had been quiet since carrying in the suitcase. You could still come back with me, he said. For what? To stay. I have a room here. You had a room there. You had a sofa. I like the sofa. No one likes that sofa. Noreen pointed her fork at him. I've never seen it, and I believe your mother. Ben pushed a green bean through a streak of gravy. Marlene reached across the table. I am not leaving because I was uncomfortable with you. Okay. I am leaving because this is closer to my house, and it has a level floor. Mine's level. The kitchen slopes toward the refrigerator. It saves time if you drop an olive. You also have work, and Leah. Leah said she didn't mind. Leah said she minded not being consulted. That's different. Yes, it is. Ben stopped moving his fork. Marlene withdrew her hand. You did the right thing. You came for me. I didn't do anything. You drove 4 hours in one day, gave me your bed, and let me reorganize your kitchen badly. You reorganized it very efficiently, just for someone else. Noreen looked from one to the other. Is this how you apologize in your family? We don't, Ben said. This is advanced material. After dinner, he carried his bag back to the truck. Marlene followed him outside. You left your father's thermos in the apartment, she said. I'll bring it next time. Don't lose it. I've managed to retain 6 crates of records for almost 3 days. They were at my house for 11 years. Joint custody. He opened the driver's door, then looked across the street at the dark Keating house. Call if Todd comes back. I can handle Todd. I know. Then why say it? Because handling him and handling him alone are different things. Marlene studied him. His eyes were tired. He had driven to Cincinnati, returned, then driven her north without once mentioning the cabinet he had delivered or the supplier show he nearly missed. You can call too, she said. For what? Anything? That's broad. I am experimenting. He smiled faintly. Good night, Mom. Noreen handed Marlene a brass key before bed. No conditions, she said. No asking permission to enter. No announcing when you'll be home, unless you want me to worry. In which case, definitely disappear for 12 hours. I don't disappear. Everyone disappears. Some people do it while sitting in the same room. Marlene turned the key over in her hand. Noreen's guest room did not contain anyone's childhood. No one had scratched a height mark inside the closet or taped a concert ticket behind the mirror. The lighthouse photograph meant nothing to her. The bedspread was yellow, a color Frank disliked. She slept 6 uninterrupted hours. In the morning, she woke to the smell of coffee and found Noreen in a robe, reading the newspaper at the kitchen table. I can make eggs, Marlene said. I had yogurt. That is not breakfast. It occurred before 10. It qualifies. Marlene opened the refrigerator. 2 shelves were empty except for a carton of eggs and the butter she had brought over. Top and middle, Noreen said without looking up. I keep promises. You didn't need to empty them completely. You told me you wanted room. The simple wording stopped Marlene with her hand on the refrigerator door. Noreen turned to Paige. Don't make it emotional. The milk is on the bottom shelf if you need it. By 9, Marlene was across the street meeting Dave. He arrived with wet hair and a cardboard tray holding 2 coffees. His expression brightened when he saw her, as if he had feared she might be accompanied by lawyers. I brought you one, he said. Is it coffee or an apology? Can it be both? They walked through the house while he explained the revised sequence. Drywall first, then floor leveling, then hardwood replacement and refinishing. The upstairs would need to be empty by the following Friday. Insurance covers moving standard bedroom furniture, Dave said. Personal storage is trickier. Everything will be out. He glanced into Todd's room. That's a lot of everything. It has owners. In the dining room, Marlene stopped beside the exposed wall. Electrical wiring ran through open studs. The damage looked less shocking now. It was becoming information. If I wanted to change something while the walls are open, when would I need to decide? Dave lifted his coffee. Depends what kind of something. The front living room could become a bedroom. He followed her gaze toward the wide doorway connecting the front room to the hall. You'd lose your main sitting area. There's the den behind the kitchen. That's small. I'm one person. Dave set down his cup. You'd want a door here, probably close part of that opening. There's a powder room on the other side of the coat closet. Yes. We might be able to borrow the closet space and put in a shower. Depends on plumbing access. What would insurance pay? Like-for-like replacement. Anything beyond that is yours. I know. He studied her. Are you planning to sell? No. Then why move the bedroom? Because I will not always enjoy those stairs. The answer surprised her with its calmness. Frank used to say they would leave the house feet first. At the time, Marlene had mistaken stubbornness for a plan. Dave measured the doorway and wrote figures on his pad. Give me 2 prices, she said. One for restoring exactly what was there. One for this. You may need permits, then include them. And an architect or residential designer for the bathroom layout. Include that too. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. You're trying to make sure I know it's complicated. It is complicated. So is living over a furniture shop with a faucet that screams. He did not understand, but he wrote it down. Todd arrived Friday morning with a rented trailer and Paige. Marlene had expected Paige to remain in the truck. Instead, her daughter-in-law stepped out wearing work gloves, old athletic shoes, and a sweatshirt advertising the consulting firm she operated from home. Where do you want us to start? Paige asked. Todd's room. Todd lowered the trailer ramp. Garage makes more sense. Your room first, Marlene said. Dave needs it empty. He can work around boxes. He charges for that. He charges for breathing. He has not billed me for breathing yet. Paige took a stack of flattened cartons from the trailer. Room first. Todd looked at her. We don't have space for all of it. We rented a storage unit. You said that was a waste of money. It is. So is arguing in your mother's driveway. Marlene hid her surprise by picking up a carton. Upstairs, Todd moved slowly through his old possessions. He opened every box before deciding whether it could be carried out, as though evidence might have changed during storage. These tax files can be shredded, Paige said. I need to look at them. They're from 2004. There could be something important. You worked at a tire warehouse in 2004. Exactly. Marlene lifted the artificial Christmas tree. Dust coated the plastic branches. Leave that, Todd said. It is yours. It fits perfectly in this closet. Nothing will remain in this closet. He frowned. What are you doing with the room? I haven't decided. Then why does it have to be empty after the floors are fixed? Because I'm not putting your things back. Todd looked toward Paige. She was taping a box and did not rescue him. They carried down the lamps, files, trophies, and foggy golfer. By noon, only the blue curtains and Frank's built-in bookcase remained. Todd stood in the doorway with his hands on his hips. It looks weird. It looks like a room. It looks erased. Marlene understood. Empty, it no longer proved that a particular boy had once slept there or that a father had measured shelves around his records. It was only walls, floor, light. Todd went to the window. Paige said, You're paying Noreen rent. I am. You could stay in our basement if we finish it. You told me the stairs were unsafe. We could put in a rail. Maybe improve the bathroom. And where would I sleep while you improve it? He rubbed his thumb along his lower lip. We could use part of the insurance money. For your basement? It would add value. And then you wouldn't be paying a stranger. Noreen is not a stranger. You know what I mean. Yes, Marlene said. I do. Paige appeared behind them. Todd, the trailer's almost full. He glanced toward the hall where the other bedroom doors stood open. What happens to all our rooms? He asked. Marlene looked at the empty closet, the clean rectangle where his dresser had protected the carpet, the shelf Frank had built for a child who now owned his own house. Your rooms, she said, are in your homes. Todd stared at her as if she had spoken in another language. That's supposed to mean what? It means this is my house. It was our house, too. It was where you grew up. That's the same thing. No, Marlene said. It isn't. Paige came into the room carrying a roll of packing tape. She looked at Todd, then at the empty closet. He's not saying he owns it, she said. He has kept enough things here to suggest otherwise. Todd's face reddened. I thought you liked having our things around. I liked believing you would come back for them. The room went still. Marlene wished she could gather the sentence out of the air. It had been too honest to be kind. Todd looked down at the pale mark where his bed had stood. I came back, he said, for tools. That's not fair. No. Paige set the tape on the windowsill. Nobody's being especially fair right now. Todd gave a humorless laugh. You seem to be enjoying this. I spent 2 years asking you to get your boxes out of your mother's house. I'm enjoying the trailer. He turned to the bookcase Frank had built. His thumb traced a nick in the edge. I didn't leave this stuff because I wanted free storage, he said. Then why? Marlene asked. He shrugged. At 44, Todd still shrugged exactly as he had at 14. One shoulder first, then the other, as though whatever mattered had caught under his shirt. Dad was here, he said. Everything stayed the same. Marlene looked at the blue curtains. She had kept them because Todd chose them when he was 16. After insisting brown curtains made the room look like a funeral home. Frank had installed the rod too low and spent years denying it. Nothing stayed the same, she said. I just kept dusting it. Todd's eyes shone, but he bent to pick up the Christmas tree box before either woman could acknowledge it. They filled the trailer. He did not ask for the planer again. Before leaving, Paige pressed a folded slip of paper into Marlene's hand. Our storage unit address, she said. If anything else turns up, call me. Not him. I can hear you, Todd said from the trailer. I know. He kissed Marlene's cheek without meeting her eyes. Don't spend a pile of money on that downstairs bedroom until we talk, he said. It is not your money, I'm aware. You don't sound aware. I'm trying to look out for you. Then ask what I want. Todd climbed into the truck. After they left, Marlene stood in his empty room until Noreen called up the stairs. You planning to live in there? No. Then come eat. I made sandwiches. At Noreen's table, Marlene unfolded the storage address and placed it beside her plate. He told me it stayed the same because Frank was here. Noreen spread mustard with the seriousness of plastering a wall. Did it? No. Did you? Marlene looked up. Noreen capped the mustard. You don't have to answer every question just because I ask it. We're still learning roommate law. You ask too many. You answer too many. It works. Dave brought the 2 estimates on Monday. Restoring the house as it had been would require Marlene to pay only the deductible and several items the insurer disputed. Converting the front living room and expanding the powder room would cost an additional $27,000, assuming the plumbing cooperated and Marlene chose ordinary finishes. Ordinary is fine, she said. There may be surprises. There are always surprises. Bad surprises. Those are the usual kind. They stood in the front room. It had once held a floral sofa, 2 wing chairs, and the piano no one played after Elaine stopped taking lessons. The furniture was still at the cleaning warehouse. Without it, the room seemed large enough for a bed, a comfortable chair, and the low dresser currently upstairs. Dave indicated the wall beside the stairs. We closed this section. Add a 36-inch door here. The bathroom would enter from the bedroom. You'd lose most of the coat closet. I own 6 coats. You could build storage along this wall. No built-ins unless they're simple. He smiled. You've dealt with contractors before. I was married to a man who thought every empty wall wanted a shelf. Marlene ran the figures twice. $27,000 would not ruin her. It would also not leave her untouched. It represented several years of careful saving, a used car she would not buy, trips she and Frank had discussed but never taken. He had wanted to see Yellowstone. Marlene had wanted to go somewhere with good room service and no bears. What if I wait? She asked. You'll pay more to tear open finished walls later, I assumed. Dave gave her a day to decide. That evening, Noreen found Marlene at the kitchen table with the estimate, her bank statements, and a yellow legal pad. Want an opinion? Noreen asked. No. Good. Mine costs extra. She put a cup of tea beside Marlene anyway. Marlene circled the total. Frank would say it's too much. Frank thought avocados were too much. He thought they were a scam. He ate $6 worth of chips, trying not to buy one. Marlene smiled. Noreen sat across from her. Will the room make it easier for you to stay in your house? Yes. Do you want to stay? Yes. Then you're not buying a bedroom. You're buying an answer. To what? Noreen picked up her tea. You'll know when somebody asks. Ben and Leah came Wednesday to clear the smallest bedroom. Ben brought Frank's thermos and placed it carefully in Marlene's hands before taking anything else inside. I washed it, he said. You put it in a dishwasher? I used a sink like a pioneer. The milk crates were already at his apartment, leaving the narrow maple bed, a desk, and 2 cartons of miscellaneous possessions. Ben opened the first carton and found old concert shirts, a broken clock, and a ceramic ashtray shaped like a fish. You never smoked, Marlene said. It was an art project. It has an indentation for cigarettes. Art can be functional. Leah held it up. This is coming home. It's hideous. I love it. You can't rescue everything. Leah looked at him. Interesting. Ben took the ashtray from her and wrapped it in newspaper. They dismantled the bed. When Marlene tried to lift the headboard, Ben removed it from her hands. I can carry wood. I know. You all keep saying that while taking things away from me? He lowered the headboard. Fine. Take that end. Together they carried it down the stairs. The turn at the landing was tight, and Marlene's wrist protested, but she did not let go. Leah followed with the rails. What are you doing with the room? She asked. Maybe sewing. You still sew? For people who arrive with unreasonable deadlines. You could charge for that. Marlene laughed. People don't pay what handwork costs. They pay me to put old finishes back on chairs after they paid somebody else to strip them off. That is because furniture owners are irrational. All owners are irrational. Ben looked back from the lower step. This is getting philosophical for a bed frame. In the front room, he noticed Dave's drawing on the mantel. What's this? A possible downstairs bedroom. Ben unfolded the plan. For now or eventually. Both. His eyes moved through the sketched doorway, the widened bathroom, the measurements. This is smart. Todd thinks I should wait. Todd thinks the future begins only after a committee meeting. How much of this could you do? Marlene asked. Ben looked up cautiously. What do you mean? Trim? Doors? Maybe the built-in storage Dave suggested. I can do all of it. For what price? Mom, for what price? You don't have to pay me. Then Dave can hire someone else. Leah leaned one shoulder against the wall, watching. Ben folded the plan along its existing crease. I'll price it. A real price. And if you were too busy, say so. I can make time. No. You can decide whether you have time. His expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. Leah smiled at Marlene. What? Ben asked. Nothing, both women said. Elaine arrived as they were securing the bed frame in Ben's truck. She stepped onto the porch holding a folder. I called, she told Marlene. My phone is inside. Elaine glanced at the truck. What's happening? I'm clearing Ben's room. You're clearing all of them? All of them need new floors. Elaine followed Marlene inside. When she saw Dave's drawing, she placed her folder over it. Before you spend money, I want you to consider something. The folder contained photographs of Elaine and Mark's sunroom. It was a bright space with tall windows, wicker furniture, and no wall separating it from the kitchen. We could convert this into a suite, Elaine said. Bedroom, small sitting area. Maybe add a bathroom. Marlene studied the photographs. You said you needed privacy. We've talked. Mark agrees this makes more sense than you, putting $20,000 or $30,000 into an old house. How do you know the cost? Todd told me. Of course. Elaine tapped the photograph. You could sell your place after it's repaired, use part of the proceeds for construction, and invest the rest. Mark can help manage it. Would I own part of your house? Elaine blinked. You'd be living with family. That wasn't my question. We haven't worked out every detail. Would I have my own entrance? We could discuss that. Could I choose the bathroom tile? Mom, don't be difficult. Marlene closed the folder. Elaine's concern was real, so was the calculation beneath it. The two truths did not cancel each other. "You found room," Marlene said, "as soon as my house became part of the offer. That is ugly. It is what happened. I am trying to keep you from wasting your savings and ending up alone. I am not alone. You're renting from Noreen." Noreen offered me a room without asking what I would sell. Elaine's eyes filled with angry tears. "So you choose her over me?" Marlene looked through the doorway. Ben and Leah stood outside beside the truck, talking quietly, neither pretending not to listen. "No," Marlene said. "I chose the room that was actually offered." Elaine's mouth trembled. "You could have called back," she said. "You could have told me it was that bad. I did tell you. You asked one question on one terrible day, and decided my answer defined our entire relationship. It did not define it. It revealed something about it. Oh, please." Elaine wiped beneath one eye with the side of her finger. "Ben drives up once, and suddenly he's the only person who ever cared about you." Outside, a truck door closed. Marlene lowered her voice. "Do not turn him into the reason you said no. I'm not. You are. If this becomes about Ben, you never have to look at what you did." Elaine folded her arms across her chest. "And you don't have to look at what you're doing now. What am I doing? Making sure everybody knows who passed your test. It was not a test. It certainly feels like one. I was sitting in my car, and I didn't know that. Because you did not ask." Elaine's face crumpled for one unguarded second. Then she reached for the folder. "I'm still offering," she said. "Whatever you think of my reasons, I'm offering now." Marlene looked at the photographs again. The sunroom was lovely. She could picture a bed between the windows, Elaine entering without knocking, Mark discussing investments over her morning coffee. She could picture herself cooking for their dinners because the kitchen was 10 feet away. She could picture everyone calling it generosity. "I don't want to sell my house," she said. "You're clinging to it because of Dad. I am changing half the first floor. That is not clinging. You're spending retirement money so you can prove you don't need anybody. I needed somebody last Thursday." Elaine put the folder beneath her arm. "You know what? Enjoy your renovation." She pulled open the door. Ben and Leah were strapping the last bed rail into the truck. Elaine stopped when she saw them. "You must be thrilled," she told Ben. He straightened. "About what?" "You finally got to be the good one." Leah stepped away from the truck, but Ben raised a hand slightly, stopping her. "I asked Mom where she was," he said. "We all asked." "No. You asked what she planned to do." "You don't know what I said. I know where she ended up." Elaine looked at Marlene. "See, it's already a story." Marlene crossed the porch. "That is enough." Neither moved. "I will not have the two of you fight over who failed me less," she said. "Take your folder home, Elaine. Ben, take the bed. This is my decision." Elaine walked to her car. The folder remained on the porch bench. Marlene signed Dave's change order the following morning. Her hand shook slightly after she wrote the date, but not while she wrote it. Dave gave her copies of the schedule, the payment stages, and a drawing revised by a residential designer. The downstairs bedroom would have a wide doorway, a curb-less shower, and a shallow storage wall instead of the coat closet. "What about upstairs?" he asked. "Restore the floors. Same room layout?" "Yes." "Putting the furniture back where it was?" "No." Dave waited, pen poised. Marlene looked up the staircase. "Elaine's room will be a sewing room. Todd's will be furnished for a renter. Ben's can stay a guest room. Do renters want to share a hall bathroom? Some do if the rent is fair. You have someone in mind?" "Not yet." She had not told any of her children. The thought pleased and frightened her. Work began with demolition. For several days the house vibrated from morning until late afternoon. Noreen claimed the noise improved her digestion. Marlene spent her time meeting tradespeople, comparing plain white tile that somehow came in 47 shades, and learning that every simple decision required 6 smaller ones. Leah brought her a wool coat with torn lining. "I was going to throw it out," she said. "Then I remembered you said owners are irrational. I said furniture owners. I contain multitudes." Marlene replaced the lining at Noreen's kitchen table. It took 4 hours. When she refused payment, Leah placed $80 beneath the folded coat. "That is too much. It's less than a new coat. You bought the fabric. You did the work." Marlene tried to hand back half. Leah would not take it. Noreen watched from the sink. "If you two keep fighting, I charge commercial rent." The following week, Celia brought over 3 pairs of trousers and a restaurant apron with a torn pocket. Noreen needed 2 pillow covers shortened. Dave asked whether Marlene could repair the zipper on his winter jacket. By the time the new drywall went up, Marlene had written 6 names and prices on a legal pad. The amounts were small. That made them feel more real. Ben sent his trim estimate by email. It was itemized down to hinges and sandpaper, with labor priced at less than half what Dave's subcontractor had quoted. Marlene called him. "You undercharged. You asked for a real price. I did. That's what I'd charge. Leah says you don't know what your time costs." Leah enjoys a theme. I'm adding 20%. You can't add to an estimate. I am the customer. That's not how customers work. It is how this one works. He eventually accepted 10% and the right to choose the wood. Marlene accepted the wood if it could be painted and did not require special imported hinges. Their argument ended when the furniture cleaning warehouse called about Frank's chair. The woman on the phone used phrases like extensive saturation and compromised upholstery. The wooden frame had dried, but the padding carried an odor. Cleaning it would cost almost as much as replacement, and the result could not be guaranteed. "Can I see it?" Marlene asked. Ben drove up that Friday. The warehouse occupied a low building behind a carpet store. Rows of wrapped sofas and tables stood beneath fluorescent lights, each tagged with claim numbers. Marlene's wing chairs looked ghostly beneath white plastic. The dining table had been unwrapped and turned upside down. Frank's chair sat alone near a workbench. Without the living room around it, it looked smaller. The brown fabric was stained dark along one side. The cushion had been removed. A warehouse employee pressed the arm and released it. "Frame's solid," he said, "but it all needs stripping. Fabric, foam, webbing. Once you get into that, you're basically rebuilding." Ben crouched. He ran his hand beneath the front rail, then reached deeper under the chair. "What?" Marlene asked. "Nothing. That is not your nothing face." He tipped the chair forward. Along the underside, a section of the old webbing had been replaced with new material. One joint showed a narrow line of lighter wood. "You repaired this," Marlene said. The employee looked between them. "He did good work. When?" Ben set the chair down. "After Dad died." Marlene stared at him. "You took it?" "The front leg was loose." "I know. Your father kept saying he would fix it. It was worse than loose. The corner block split." "When did you take it?" "The week after the funeral." Everything from that week existed in Marlene's memory as disconnected objects. Casseroles, black shoes, Elaine's legal pads, Todd carrying trash bags from the garage. Ben had come and gone without staying for meals. "I thought you were taking records," she said. "I took the chair at night." "You removed a chair from my house without telling me?" "I brought it back." "That is not an answer." He glanced at the warehouse employee, who suddenly found paperwork across the room deeply interesting. "I fixed it at the shop," Ben said. "Brought it back before you noticed. Why would you do that?" "Because it was broken. Why didn't you tell me?" Ben stood, rubbing dust from his hands. "Elaine already thought I was taking things. Todd kept asking what Dad promised me. If I said I had the chair, it would become a whole event. So you lied." "I didn't lie. Nobody asked where the chair went." The echo silenced them both. Marlene looked at the repaired joint. "You came into my house and took something without permission," she said. "I know." "Then you repaired it for free." "Yes. Why?" Ben's jaw worked. "Dad sat in that chair every night," he said. "I couldn't stand thinking of it collapsing after he was gone." The employee moved farther away. Marlene touched the stained arm. "You could have told me. You thanked people in those days by giving them jobs. Elaine brought food, so you had her organize the freezer. Todd changed a light bulb, so you gave him a list for the garage. I didn't want you to owe me. I would not have owed you. You would have felt like you did." She wanted to deny it. Instead, she remembered the legal pad beside Noreen's sewing machine. Every favor converted into a duty. Every duty used to keep grief from reaching her hands. "What did Frank promise you?" she asked. "Nothing. Todd said you were waiting to make them look selfish. Todd thinks everything is a contest because Dad made it one. That does not answer me." Ben walked around the chair and lifted the loose cushion. "Dad came to my shop once," he said. Leah mentioned that. He'd been driving past for 2 years. One afternoon, he stopped. He looked at my machines, told me my dust collection was inadequate, and sat on a chair I was rebuilding without asking if it was safe. Marlene smiled before she could stop herself. "That sounds like him." He said the legs on my cabinet were too thin. He told me they would be. He also said the curve was good. Ben's voice had gone quiet. Did he tell you about his chair? She asked. He said the leg was loose. I told him to bring it down. He said he could fix his own chair, but he didn't. No. Marlene looked at the joint Ben had repaired after the funeral, finishing an argument neither man had known how to finish while Frank was alive. Can you save it again? She asked. Ben pressed the frame, testing each corner. Yes. What will it cost? Mom? What will it cost? He gave her a tired look. Materials. And labor. I'm not charging labor on Dad's chair. It is my chair. That is a very inconvenient distinction. It belongs in my bedroom when the house is done. Ben examined the water-stained fabric. You want it where you'll see it every day? I don't know, Marlene said. But I want the choice. The warehouse employee brought a release form. Marlene signed it, and Ben loaded the chair into his truck. At the workshop, they stripped the ruined fabric together. Beneath it, the old wood showed scratches, nail holes, and one clean repair no one had ever seen. Ben handed Marlene a pair of pliers. Pull straight, he said. Don't twist. I know how to remove a tack. I know. This time, he let her do it. The tack came free with a small metallic snap. Marlene dropped it into a coffee can. That makes 43. You're counting? I don't like uncertainty. There are about 200. That is not comforting. Ben worked on the opposite side of the chair, using a narrow pry bar to lift the rusted staples. He had turned off the workshop radio. Without it, Marlene could hear Leah sanding in the next room and rain ticking against the high windows. The chair's old fabric lay in wet-smelling heaps on the floor. Beneath it, Frank's seat had become wood, webbing, and a handful of springs. It looked less like a chair than an argument for faith. You said your father made everything a contest, Marlene said. Ben did not look up. Did I? At the warehouse. Sounds like me. Was that what you thought? That he set you against Todd? Dad set everybody against whoever wasn't in the room. That is unfair. He used to praise Todd for being practical when he wanted me to feel irresponsible. Then he'd tell Todd I was creative when Todd did something boring. Todd is practical. And I was irresponsible. You were sometimes. Ben pulled a staple. There it is. I am not going to rewrite history because you were kind to me last Thursday. I didn't ask you to. You quit a stable job without telling anyone. You borrowed money from us twice. I paid it back. You stopped answering calls for 6 months. I was ashamed. We were worried. I know. Marlene removed another tack. It bent instead of releasing. You make it sound as though your father invented every problem you had. No. Ben set down the pry bar. I made plenty myself. Dad just kept score. He worried about you. He liked worrying about me. It proved he was right. Marlene twisted the pliers. The tack broke, leaving half embedded in the wood. You twisted, Ben said. I know. He moved beside her, took a smaller tool, and worked the broken piece loose without comment. Marlene watched his hands. Frank's hands had been broader, the nails always cut too short. Ben's fingers were long and scarred, with a fresh nick along the thumb. I should have defended you more, she said. The broken tack came free. Ben placed it in the can. From what? Your father. You defended me. Sometimes, you'd tell him to stop after he'd already said it. I was trying to keep peace. For who? The question was gentle. That made it harder. Marlene looked toward the doorway. Leah had stopped sanding, though she might only have changed tools. For the house, Marlene said. Exactly. I thought if everyone stayed at the table, we were still a family. Sometimes staying at the table was the punishment. Frank had believed in finishing meals, finishing arguments, finishing whatever was on the plate. Ben had once sat for an hour in front of cold liver because he refused to eat it. Marlene had finally wrapped the liver in a napkin and put it in her pocket when Frank went to answer the phone. For years, she remembered that as kindness. Now she wondered why she had not simply removed the plate. You could have called me after he died, she said. Not about the chair, about anything. Ben sat on the workshop floor with his back against the stripped frame. I could have. You left me alone. I know. I kept thinking you were angry with him and didn't understand that I was still here. I knew you were there, then why? He picked sawdust from his jeans. Every time I thought about calling, I imagined you asking how business was. Business was bad. Then I imagine you offering money, and me saying no, and you insisting, and me getting mad. So I didn't call. You invented an entire conversation and punished me for it. Yes. That is ridiculous. It was very efficient. She almost smiled. He did not. I also thought you preferred Elaine and Todd, he said. They knew what to do. Elaine brought lists. Todd walked around with tools. I came over and felt like the defective piece nobody had ordered. You were my son. I know that now. You knew it then. I knew it as information. Marlene sat in the chair frame before remembering there was no seat. Ben caught her elbow. I am not helpless, she snapped. I know. There's also no bottom in the chair. He helped her onto a work stool. Leah appeared carrying 3 sandwiches in a paper bag. I heard nothing and brought lunch. You stopped sanding, Ben said. I sand quietly when families become interesting. She handed Marlene a sandwich and sat on the workbench. Marlene unwrapped hers. Tell him he undercharges. I tell him daily. 2 against 1, Ben said. You enjoy being outnumbered, Leah replied. It confirms your worldview. Ben bit into his sandwich. Leah looked at the stripped chair. You going with the green fabric? Marlene had chosen a dark olive wool from Ben's samples. Frank would have selected brown vinyl because it could be wiped with a damp cloth. Yes. It'll look good. I can sew the cushion cover. Ben shook his head. I have done box cushions, not with this fabric. What is wrong with this fabric? Nothing. It's expensive. Then I will be careful. You're paying me to do the chair. I am paying you to repair the frame. I can sew. Leah chewed thoughtfully. She can. You've seen one coat lining, Ben said. I recognize competence. It's a professional requirement. Marlene pointed half a sandwich at him. I will sew the cushion. You will deduct that labor. You negotiated my price up and now you're negotiating it down. I contain multitudes. Leah laughed hard enough to cough. After lunch, Ben went upstairs to retrieve a roll of tracing paper. When he returned, a small black velvet box fell from the pocket of his jacket. It landed beside Marlene's shoe. Ben stopped. Leah looked at the box, then at him. That's dramatic. You've never seen it? Marlene asked. No. Ben picked it up. Marlene recognized the worn gray line along one corner. Frank had kept that box in his top dresser drawer. What is it? Leah asked. Ben opened it. Inside lay a pair of plain silver cufflinks shaped like carpenter's levels. Tiny green glass tubes formed the centers. Frank wore them at Elaine's wedding, Todd's wedding, and every Christmas Eve service Marlene could persuade him to attend. He gave you those, she said. Ben nodded. When? The day he came to the shop. Marlene touched one with the tip of her finger. He told me he lost them. He told me not to make a big thing of it. So you hid them. I put them in a box, in your laundry. My storage system is personal. Leah lifted one cufflink. These are wonderful. I don't own a shirt that takes them. Then we'll find you one. Ben glanced at her. Something unguarded passed between them. Marlene closed the box and handed it back. She felt no anger that Frank had lied, only a tired tenderness for 2 men who had conducted affection like a secret transaction. He wanted you to have something of his, she said. He wanted to get rid of cufflinks. That too. By the time Ben finished repairing the chair frame, the new hardwood floors had been installed. He brought trim samples to the house and spent 4 days fitting baseboards around the converted bedroom. Marlene did not hover, though refraining required active concentration. She worked upstairs instead, setting up a folding table in Elaine's old room. Celia's aprons hung from the closet door. Leah's coat had led to 3 more referrals, including a wool skirt, whose owner believed it could be made 2 sizes larger without changing shape. It can, Marlene said, but it will cost more than the skirt. The woman paid anyway. In Todd's room, Noreen helped assemble a new double bed. Who's renting it? Ben asked from the hall. Ruby Cole may need it for a few months, Noreen said. Who's Ruby Cole? Worked at the pharmacy with my sister. Her landlord is selling the duplex, and her apartment at Lakeview won't be ready until winter. Does Mom know her? She met her twice. Ben looked at Marlene. You're letting a stranger move in? She is not moving in tomorrow. She's coming for coffee. You should check references. I will. Make a written agreement. I will. Put a lock on the bedroom door. I already asked Dave. Ben folded his arms. You've thought about this? Yes. He looked into the room. The blue curtains were gone, replaced by cream-colored ones Noreen found on sale. Frank's bookcase remained, freshly painted. What about the guest room? He asked. Your old room. So, I'm assigned the smallest one again. You are not assigned anything. That sounded worse than I meant it. Marlene put down her measuring tape. There will be one guest room. Any guest may use it, including Elaine. Including Elaine, if she survives seeing the sewing room. Elaine had not visited since leaving the folder. She called twice, both times, to ask whether Marlene had reconsidered the sunroom. When Marlene said no, the calls became brief and careful. Todd had not called at all. The new downstairs bathroom was completed on a Thursday. Marlene stepped into the shower wearing her shoes because the grout was still curing and stood beneath the chrome fixture. There was a built-in seat, a grab bar, and no threshold to cross. Dave waited in the doorway. Too much? He asked. No. Too institutional? No. Everybody worries about that. I'm not everybody. The front bedroom held her low dresser, the restored wing chairs, and a new bed. Frank's chair was not ready. Marlene had left space for it beside the window. She paid Dave the final change order installment and paid Ben his agreed labor, including the 10% he continued calling extortion. Then she paid Noreen the last month of rent in advance. You know you can stay longer, Noreen said. I know. That isn't me hinting you should. I know that too. Ruby came for coffee that Saturday. She was 66, worked 3 mornings a week at a medical office, and spoke so softly Noreen repeatedly accused her of disappearing mid-sentence. She liked the upstairs room, accepted the rent without bargaining, and asked whether Marlene objected to early showers. I object to singing before 8, Marlene said. I don't sing. Excellent. They agreed Ruby would move in after the final inspection. On Sunday, Marlene wrote invitations to dinner in a group message and erased them 3 times. House is ready. Dinner next Saturday at 6. Please come if you can, Elaine answered. Of course. Todd waited 4 hours, then wrote, We'll be there. Ben called. Is this the official reopening? He asked. It is dinner. Should I bring the chair? Is it finished? Almost. Then no. What are you planning? Chicken. That's not what I meant. Marlene stood in her new downstairs bedroom, looking through the open door toward the staircase. I know, she said. Bring Leah. On Saturday morning, the dining room smelled like lemon oil and roasting chicken. The cleaned oak table had returned from storage with a faint watermark along one edge. Marlene could have paid to have the entire top refinished, but the mark did not bother her. It looked like a pale river running through the grain. Evidence, not ruin. The walls were painted warm cream. No one had attempted to reproduce the blue leaf wallpaper. Above the empty china cabinet hung a photograph of Frank standing beside Lake Erie with his eyes closed against the wind. Noreen arrived at 10, carrying salad greens and a pie. I asked you to make salad, Marlene said. I did. You bought a pie. Accidents happen. Marlene had assigned something to everyone. Elaine was bringing potatoes. Todd was responsible for ice and wine. Ben had been told bread only, because any broader instruction might produce a handmade table. You nervous? Noreen asked. No, your gravy's boiling. Marlene turned down the burner. At 4, the table was set, and the chicken rested beneath foil. Marlene went upstairs to check the guest room, even though no one was staying overnight. The maple bed had returned from Ben's workshop with its scratches polished but visible. Clean towels lay at the foot. The room contained no records, no cartons, and nothing that belonged specifically to Ben. Across the hall, the sewing room held her machine, cutting table, thread cabinet, and 2 garments waiting for pickup. Elaine's brass bed was gone. Marlene had offered it back. Elaine said she had no place for it. It had been sold to a young couple through a neighborhood listing, and the money paid for the sewing room lights. Todd's old room was ready for Ruby. A new quilt covered the double bed. The cream curtains softened the afternoon sun. Frank's bookcase held nothing but a lamp and 3 paperbacks Ruby had left during her visit. Marlene heard Noreen at the bottom of the stairs. You checking if the room's escaped? I'm coming. In the kitchen, Noreen washed lettuce while Marlene dried a serving bowl. Stay for dinner, Marlene said. Noreen shut off the water. You sure? No. Good answer. I want you here. I also want them to understand this isn't you against them. That would be a short fight. I have good knees and no patience. Marlene smiled. Maybe tonight should be family. Noreen dried her hands. Family's who you have to explain yourself to before they misunderstand you anyway. She placed the salad in the refrigerator. I'll go. Call me after. If you say everything's fine, I'll come back and check for smoke. Elaine and Mark arrived 15 minutes early. Elaine carried a casserole dish of potatoes beneath a quilted cover. She entered through the front door, glanced toward the new bedroom, and stopped. Marlene had left the door open. The green coverlet was folded neatly across the bed. Her low dresser stood beneath the window. The expanded bathroom was visible beyond the reading chair. "It's finished," Elaine said. "Yes." Mark leaned inside. "Looks good." Elaine touched the new door frame. "You really spent all that money?" "I spent what we discussed." "We didn't discuss it. You told me." Marlene took the potatoes. "Dinner is at 6. Elaine followed her to the kitchen. "Are you angry with me?" "Yes." The direct answer halted her. "Still?" "I am not angry every minute." "That isn't what I asked." "I know." Mark set a bottle of sparkling water on the counter and began examining the new cabinet hardware. Elaine removed the quilted cover from the potatoes. "I apologized. You said you were sorry the situation became complicated. It did become complicated. You said you would have helped if you had understood. That was an apology. It was an explanation." Elaine pressed her lips together. "What do you want me to say?" "Nothing before dinner." Todd and Paige arrived at 6 carrying 2 bags of ice, 3 bottles of wine, and a store-bought cheesecake. "Noreen brought pie," Marlene said. Todd lifted the cheesecake. "This was Paige." "You told me dessert," Paige said. "I told you wine. You said wine and whatever. Cheesecake is whatever." Mark accepted the ice and escaped toward the kitchen. Todd inspected the downstairs bedroom from the doorway. He nodded once, not quite approval. "Bathroom came out nice." "It did." "Grab bars are a good idea." "You told me to wait. I said we should talk." "We talked." Paige took off her coat. "Where's the nearest bathroom?" "Upstairs is open." Todd looked at Marlene, then followed Paige up. She heard his steps stop overhead. Ben and Leah arrived last with 2 loaves of bread from Celia's diner. "I baked them," Ben said. Leah handed the bag to Marlene. "He did not. I participated in the transaction." "Thank you for following directions," Marlene said. Ben looked toward the empty space beside her new bedroom window, where Frank's chair would eventually go. "Chair's done." "You said almost. It became done. And you left it there?" "You said no." Marlene squeezed his arm. "Thank you." Todd came downstairs alone. "Who's Ruby?" The room quieted. "Paige told you," Marlene said. "She said a woman might rent the room. She didn't say it was decided." "It is decided. You're moving a stranger into my room?" "Ruby is not a stranger to Noreen, and she has provided references." "That's not what I mean." "What do you mean?" Todd looked toward the stairs. "It's my room." "Not this again," Paige called from above. Elaine turned. "Which room?" Marlene carried the bread into the dining room. "Please sit down." No one did. Elaine walked upstairs. "Mom," Ben said quietly. She was going to see it eventually. Elaine returned less than a minute later. Her face had lost color. "You sold the bed. You said you didn't want it. You made my room into a business. I made a room into a place where I can work. You couldn't use the guest room? The guest room is for guests." Todd gave a short laugh. "Meaning Ben?" "Meaning any invited guest. Ruby gets my room, Ben gets his, and Elaine gets nothing?" Ben placed both hands on the back of a dining chair. "I don't get anything." "You got exactly what you wanted," Elaine said. "What's that?" "For once, you're the child who showed up." Leah looked at Marlene, waiting to see whether she should stay. Marlene pulled out a chair. "Everybody sit," she said. "The chicken is getting cold." They sat because disobedience would have required more energy than any of them had left. For several minutes, plates moved and serving spoons clicked. Mark complimented the chicken. Paige asked for salt. No one touched the wine. Elaine's potatoes were excellent. Marlene said so. "Thank you," Elaine replied stiffly. Todd cut his chicken into smaller and smaller pieces. Finally, he put down his knife. "Was this why you invited us? So we could tour the consequences?" "I invited you because the house is ready." "No, you wanted us to see that you erased us." "I removed your belongings." "You sold her bed." "She did not want it." "You could have kept the rooms." "For what?" "For family." Marlene looked around the table. "Family lives in people, not bedrooms." "That's convenient now," Elaine said. "You kept those rooms like shrines for years." "I did. Nobody asked you to." The sentence struck cleanly. Marlene set down her fork. Elaine continued, gaining courage from the absence of immediate denial. "I never asked you to keep my china. I said I liked it. You told me you had space. Todd didn't force you to store his boxes. Ben asked for his records and you kept saying they were fine. They were fine. That's the point. You offered things constantly: storage, sewing, food, errands. Then suddenly all those offers became proof that we owed you. I did not say you owed me. You didn't have to. You asked each of us for a room and started counting. I called because I needed help. You called like you were arranging a dentist appointment, Todd said. You said 4 weeks, maybe 5. You said you could pay groceries. You made it sound like a practical question. It was a practical question. No, Ben said. Everyone looked at him. He remained still, hands beneath the table. It wasn't practical, he said. Not only, Mom never asks for the other part. Marlene felt heat rise in her face. Ben looked at her. You make a request sound small enough that nobody has to feel anything. Then, if they don't hear what you didn't say, you decide they didn't care. Elaine leaned back. Thank you. I'm not agreeing with you, Ben said. I'm saying I almost missed it too. But you didn't, Todd said. No, I asked where she was. Elaine turned to Marlene. Why didn't you say, I have nowhere to go tonight? Because I was ashamed. The words silenced the table. Marlene had not planned to say it. She had planned several clearer sentences while seasoning the chicken. None of them remained. I was ashamed that I had to ask, she said. I was ashamed that I had kept all this room for all of you, and I did not know whether any of you would make room for me. Elaine stared at her plate. Marlene looked at Todd. You are right. I offered too much. I said yes before anyone finished asking. Sometimes I did it because I loved you. Sometimes I did it because being useful was easier than wondering whether you wanted me around. Todd's eyes lifted. I kept your rooms because I liked seeing them, she continued. I liked believing you could come home, but I also kept them so I would have something you needed: storage, a holiday table, your father's tools. That was not fair either. Mark reached for his water, but did not drink. Marlene's voice shook. Then I needed one room. One. Elaine had space. Todd had space. Both of you treated me as though my body was another box you did not want in your house. That's not, Todd began. It is what it felt like. He stopped. I kept 3 rooms waiting for people who had no room for me, she said. I could not keep doing it. Elaine's eyes filled. I was angry at Mark that week. Mark looked at her. You knew I was angry. I didn't know you told your mother we were falling apart. I didn't say that. You implied it, Marlene said. Elaine pressed both palms against the table. I had spent years feeling like every time you came over, you found something wrong. The pantry, the way I folded towels, what we ate. When you asked to stay, all I could think was that I would never be alone in my own house. I was trying to help. I know. That was the problem. The words might have come from Ben. Marlene looked at him, but he was watching Elaine. Todd rubbed his lower lip. Paige said you could stay. Paige turned toward him. I said we could move the office upstairs. You said it would be difficult. I said it would be inconvenient. Todd looked at Marlene. I heard no because I wanted to hear no. Why? Because I knew you'd see the basement and ask why the trim wasn't finished. And I knew once you were there, I'd feel responsible for everything. You are my son. You were responsible for helping. For helping, yes. Not for everything. I did not ask for everything. No, you just make a person feel like anything less is failure. Marlene opened her mouth, then closed it. Leah reached beneath the table and took Ben's hand. He seemed surprised. Elaine pushed her chair back. So what happens now? She asked. We admit we're terrible, you admit you're difficult, and Ruby gets the room. Ruby pays rent, Marlene said. I sew upstairs. I sleep downstairs. The guest room belongs to no one. And us? You visit when we agree on a time. You take your belongings home. You ask before assuming I will alter a dress or cook a meal. I paid for the fabric. That is not the same as asking. Elaine stood. I can't do this. Mark rose with her. Elaine, Marlene said. What? I am not disowning you? No, you're just redesigning us. She walked out. Mark hesitated long enough to say, dinner was very good, then followed. The front door closed. Todd stared toward the hallway. Paige placed her napkin beside her plate. We should go, she said. Todd did not move. Ben started gathering dishes. Leave those, Marlene told him. You cooked, and you are not earning anything. His hands stopped. Todd looked at him. You really only asked where she was? Yes. You didn't know she'd called us? Not until she told me. You didn't know about the insurance money or the renovation? No. Todd looked ashamed that he had needed those answers. Paige stood and squeezed Marlene's shoulder before taking the cheesecake from the counter. Todd remained seated. When the door closed behind Paige, he looked toward the empty space by the bedroom window. Dad's chair goes there? He asked. Yes. He nodded. I thought he promised me the planer, Todd said. Maybe he did. Maybe I just wanted him to. Marlene sat across from him. I don't know. I'm sorry I went into the house. Thank you. He rubbed his hands together. I'm not ready to apologize for everything else. I didn't think you were. They sat until Paige tapped the car horn once outside. At the door, Todd hugged Marlene with both arms. After he left, Ben and Leah carried dishes into the kitchen despite her instruction. Marlene let them. Noreen's pie remained untouched on the counter. I'll make coffee, Leah said. No, Marlene replied. Please make coffee. Leah smiled and reached for the filters. Marlene stood alone in the dining room, looking at the chairs Elaine and Todd had emptied. The dinner had not repaired anything. It had only removed the sheets that had been covering the damage. For the first time, that felt like progress. Noreen returned before the coffee finished brewing. She came through the back door wearing slippers and carrying the salad bowl she had forgotten. I saw Elaine's car leave at a speed inconsistent with digestion, she said. How much smoke? Medium, Leah answered. Noreen surveyed the table, the abandoned potatoes, and Todd's half-full wine glass. Anybody injured? Only accurately described, Ben said. Marlene cut the pie. Her hands were tired, but steady. Noreen accepted a slice and did not ask for details. That was the mercy of an old friend, knowing when curiosity was less useful than staying in the chair. Leah washed dishes. Ben dried. Marlene started to protest, then stopped herself. Put the large platter in the bottom cabinet, she said. It fits sideways. Ben nodded. Thank you for the operational clarity. You're welcome. When they left, he kissed her cheek and stood beneath the porch light. Elaine will call, he said. I know. She may call me first. Do not speak for me. I won't. And don't agree with everything I said because you're angry at them. I don't agree with everything you said. Marlene raised her eyebrows. Ben backed toward his truck. Good night. Elaine did not call. For 9 days she communicated through the family group message. Thank you for dinner. Mark left his bottle opener. Can Todd bring it Sunday? Her words were polite enough to serve at a formal luncheon. Todd came the following Sunday for the bottle opener. He brought the socket set he had accidentally packed with his garage boxes. I think this was Dad's, he said. It was. He set it on Frank's workbench without asking whether he could have it. Then he stood in the garage, looking at the planer. Marlene waited. I don't need it, he said. You wanted it. That's different. Yes. He walked through the house before leaving. In Ruby's room, he straightened the lamp on Frank's bookcase. He did not refer to the room as his. Ruby moved in on a Tuesday with 4 suitcases, a television, a coffee maker, and 14 potted violets. I said I had some plants, she told Marlene. You said 3. I said a few. 14 is a collection. 14 is restraint. Noreen stood on the stairs holding 2 violets. She left 9 with her sister. Ruby's furniture was in storage, so the room changed only through small additions. Slippers beside the bed, mystery novels on the bookcase, a blue robe on the door. She signed the rental agreement, paid the first month, and asked permission before hanging a framed photograph. You may put things on the walls, Marlene said. You live here. Ruby considered this. Even a nail? Especially a nail. The first morning, Marlene woke to the shower running upstairs, no singing. 10 minutes later, she smelled Ruby's coffee and heard the careful tread of another person beginning a day. It was not family. It was not loneliness either. They developed rules without announcing them as rules. Ruby bought her own milk but shared butter. Marlene cooked on Thursdays because she liked cooking on Thursdays. Ruby preferred takeout on Saturdays. If either closed her bedroom door, the other knocked. When Noreen came over without warning, she was required to bring something edible or useful. The sewing work settled into the upstairs room. Marlene charged what the work cost, even when people widened their eyes. Celia referred restaurant customers. Leah sent owners of expensive coats. Dave's repaired jacket brought 2 more contractors with torn work pants. Marlene never made enough to call it a business without smiling, but she made enough to pay for fabric, better lights, and Ruby's room curtains without touching her savings. Todd began appearing every few Saturdays. At first he invented reasons. A wrench he might have left, a question about the garage outlet, a need to measure Frank's workbench, though he never said what measurement he required. Eventually he arrived with coffee and admitted he had no reason. Paige says, "I'm making this strange." "You are. I didn't know if I should call." "You should." "So I can come in?" "You are already inside." He laughed, then helped Marlene carry folded fabric upstairs because she asked him to. When she did not ask for anything else, he seemed uncertain what to do with himself. They drank coffee in the den. "I keep thinking about that morning," he said. "Which morning, when you called?" Marlene waited. "I knew the basement stairs weren't the real reason," he said. "Paige told me we could make space. I didn't even ask her twice. You told us that at dinner. I know, I'm trying to say it again better." "All right." He looked into his coffee. "I did not want my life rearranged. Neither did I." No, it was not an apology. It was closer than he had been. Ben brought Frank's chair home in November. The olive fabric deepened the wood and made the chair look both familiar and new. The arms had been rebuilt with fresh padding. Ben had polished the legs but left a small dent where Frank once dropped a hammer while repairing the lamp behind it. Leah followed him through the front door carrying the cushion. "No walls were damaged during delivery," she announced. "Yet," Ben said. They placed the chair beside Marlene's bedroom window. It fit exactly in the space she had saved. Marlene sat. The seat was firmer than Frank preferred. The back supported her shoulders differently. It did not smell like him. She had expected that loss to hurt, but the chair no longer seemed like something pretending he had just stepped away. It was an object that had survived him, then water, then being dismantled. "It's comfortable," she said. Ben exhaled. "You doubted me?" "I doubted the cushion." "You sewed it?" "The seams are straight, mostly." She ran her hand along one. "Invoice?" she asked. Ben took a folded paper from his pocket. Leah looked astonished. "He made an invoice? She has trained me through fear?" The amount included materials and labor, reduced by the hours Marlene spent on the cushion. It was fair. She wrote him a check at the kitchen table. While he folded it into his wallet, she placed a brass key beside his hand. A strip of masking tape around it read, "For emergencies and invitations." Ben read the label twice. "Does Todd have one?" "No." "Elaine?" "No." His expression became wary. "Is this a prize?" "It is a key." "Because I came for you?" "Because you have been here 8 times since then, worked for what I paid you, and still knock before entering. You make it sound like probation. All relationships are probation with better snacks." He picked up the key. "I'll still knock, I know." Elaine's silence lasted until the week before Thanksgiving. She arrived at 3 in the afternoon, carrying the blue serving bowl. Marlene was pinning a hem upstairs when she heard the bell. Elaine stood on the porch alone, holding the bowl with both hands. "You forgot something?" Marlene asked. "No." "Is the bowl broken?" "No." "Then why is it here?" Elaine looked past her into the hall. "Can I come in?" Marlene stepped aside. Elaine removed her coat and walked through the downstairs rooms. She paused at Frank's chair, touched the new fabric, and moved on. In the sewing room, she examined the racks, the cutting table, and the bright lights purchased with the sale of her brass bed. "It's nice," she said. "It works." Elaine placed the bowl on the table. "I don't have space for it. You have 4 bedrooms. That is apparently not the same as having space for China." Marlene almost smiled. Elaine sat in the chair beside the machine. "I didn't come to give it back." "Good. I needed an excuse. To visit, to come through the door. You can come without carrying something." "I wasn't sure." Marlene removed the pins from her mouth and set them in a dish. Elaine watched her. "I should have let you stay." "Yes, I knew you needed somewhere. Maybe I didn't understand about that night, but I understood enough." Marlene did not rescue her. "I was afraid you would take over," Elaine continued. "And instead of saying that, I made Mark sound like our marriage was collapsing. Mark enjoyed that. He did not." "No." Elaine twisted her wedding ring. "I told myself you had money, so saying no wasn't dangerous." Then Ben asked one question and made the rest of us look exactly as bad as we were. "He did not make you look anything." "I know." The room filled with the small hum of the heating vent. "I'm sorry," Elaine said. "Not that it became complicated. I'm sorry I knew you needed me and chose my comfort. Marlene sat across from her. I'm sorry I made my help feel like an inspection, she said. I did it at your house too often. You reorganized my pantry by expiration date. It was efficient. You threw out a jar of capers. They were 6 years old. Capers are preserved, not immortal. Elaine laughed through tears. They had coffee downstairs. Elaine left the blue bowl in the empty china cabinet, not because Marlene agreed to store it, but because they planned to use it for potatoes on Thanksgiving. She took it home afterward. Winter settled around the house. Ruby's apartment at Lakeview was delayed again, and she extended her agreement through January. Todd came without invented errands. Elaine called before visiting, and sometimes arrived with nothing. None of them became easy. They became more honest about the work required. At Christmas, Marlene invited Noreen, Ruby, Celia, Leah, and all 3 children with their spouses. She assigned dishes and did not correct anyone's recipe. Elaine brought potatoes in the blue bowl. Todd brought wine and the correct amount of ice. Ben arrived wearing a dark shirt fastened with Frank's silver-level cufflinks. Leah wore the coat Marlene had relined. After dinner, snow thickened against the windows. Ben checked the weather and said the highway would be worse before it improved. You should stay, Marlene told him and Leah. He glanced upstairs. Which room should we use? The guest room. Ruby lives in the other one. Right. He picked up their small overnight bag, then paused at the foot of the stairs. Where are you sleeping? The question was ordinary now. That was what made it precious. Marlene looked through the open doorway of the room she had chosen and paid for, at Frank's restored chair beside the window, and the green coverlet turned down across her bed. In my room, she said, right where I'm supposed to.